Hello, I'm Eagle Gardens 1 on Instagram, and this is fucking talking shit with Eagle, episode 573. Hopefully, you guys are having a great evening. I sure have. Got a great guest, fellow podcaster on the show tonight, Doc Caylx. How you doing, Doc? You want to tell us how you're doing? Of course, where they can find you, my friend.
Yeah, of course. You can find me on Instagram. My personal grow page is at doc_Calyx. I also have the podcast page on Instagram, which is Calyx_crew_podcast. You can find it on YouTube, Deezer, Stitcher, Spotify, all that good stuff.
Right there. And again, I thank you for hanging out, buying us another night for the community to hang out and talk a little bit of shit amongst themselves while we talk. So thank you for that, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having
You
me.
mentioned you were rolling. You mentioned you were rolling something up. What you smoking on? Well, what would you be smoking on with us?
So this last grow, we did a big pheno hunt of Swami Organic Seeds Paki chocolate Thai. It was a Pakistani chocolate Thai crossed, and then he crossed it back to the chocolate Thai again. And there's so many good phenotypes out of that hunt, but we found one that we're calling the dumpster pheno. It's not skunky, it's just like rotten, wet garbage, like that nasty stuff. And that's the stuff I seem to go after. Like the more offensive it is, the better it is to me. Um, and this one was just incredible. So this one will keep me up for the show. Cheers.
Yeah, nice. Cheers to you as well. I'm going to be smoking a little bit of Milkman from Empire Breeding Co. A little bit of cereal milk times his GG4 V or barbecue gorilla V2 is the most with that. Good stuff, man. That milk, that cereal milk comes through. If you haven't had that cereal milk,
I just had it the
stuff.
other day for the first time. It was very nice. Good terps. It's kind of
I
one
was
of
hoping
the
it
ones
would
that
come
was,
through heavy in the cross.
yeah, it's creamy and it's kind of light, but it's really delightful. Like the terpenes that are there are very, very pleasing.
First time I had gotten the seeds from Mr. Tight there. I do some testing for him, and I had him in the ground, but I hadn't had a chance to try the cereal milk yet. And I was up at one of these events in northern Michigan, and I come across a vendor that had some of the cereal milk, and we rolled that up, and you know it's good when you're in a circle of very talented growers, and as that's being passed around, everybody's looking at that going, what the hell's that?
Something new.
I was like, yeah, I can't wait for that to come off.
Yeah, that's badass, man.
So we
You
get to
know,
know it's
when for one of the first back when I came on IG that was already growing, that was kind of already out there and shit. And I remember the first time I really started paying attention to your grow page, the Eagle Gardens, you had just posted like a 10. And I was like, God, that's a beautiful canopy. And it was not even a day or two later that you actually showed your wall where you had like 4 or 5, what you got behind you there. And I was like, wow, that's a lot more than I saw yesterday. This guy's awesome. So congratulations on all your work within the cannabis community as well, man.
oh man, thank you. That means a lot. It really does. So what we try to do is we try to get to know the people behind some of the cannabis pages, some of the podcasts. Uh, I talk to everybody here, from the guy that's got 1 to 2 plants, from the commercial grower, anybody that's got a genuine love for the plant. We try to get to know a little bit more about them, a little bit deeper, how they got started and all that. So I start every show off with the basic question to get it rolling. When was your first experience with cannabis, either
Oh,
seeing it or consuming it?
I think I was probably a freshman in high school. And that was back in the dare days, dare keep your kids off drugs. That one didn't work very well. But the more that I heard about it, the more I was interested in it. And back when I was a freshman in high school, I was a bag boy at a local grocery store. That was like one of my first jobs besides working for my dad out on the farm and stuff. And when I was a bag boy at the grocery store, I would stock the magazines and stuff like that, and I would always see High Times. And that was, through a world of boring ass magazines, that was the one that always stuck out. And I found the flowers on them were beautiful. And it wasn't even a couple months after that. So we're talking like 03, 04. One of my buddies, he was my best friend growing up. He was good friends with a lot of the local Indians and whatnot. And they gave him this huge bag of seeds. And we had like this little crawl space over at his place. And we put like a chicken's heat lamp down there and a bunch of like seedling flats and threw a bunch of these. We didn't even know what number it was, but they called them Northern Light seeds. So, the best I could speculate was they kind of looked like NO2 from what I remember, but back then we weren't good growers. That was kind of our first experience with it. So we had a bunch of these string bean, like lengthy seedlings that had 3 inches before they even had cotyledons, and they're all over the place. But the very first time that we flipped it to like a 12-12 schedule, and you see that stretch and those first pistils start shooting out, the second I saw those white pistils, I just fell in love. I saw everything that I remembered from like the High Times magazines and shit. And I just instantly fell in love with the plant. I didn't know it was going to be who would make me today, back then. It was just like, oh man, I could grow my own pot now. Hell yeah, this is way cheaper. But that's kind of how I got started with it. And then after we grew indoor, we moved outdoor. We grew a few plants outdoor. We did some guerrilla grows and stuff like that. And then probably like 10 years back, somewhere in there, I'd started growing with some friends again. I had gone off to college. I wasn't growing, wasn't doing anything with the plant for a couple of years. And then I came back, started doing more outdoor growing again. And then we finally got like a nice ass greenhouse. And I don't remember what the size on it was, but it was a full size. Like we had an air intake, we had an exhaust, we had supplemental lighting. It was amazing. And it was a piece of shit when we had it, but we fixed it up really nice and we were doing a ton of that. And I think besides like feeding the plant and understanding what nutrients did for it, I was never really into it. I wasn't a grower per se. Like I wasn't studying it. Like, how can I make this better? How can I do this better? And then it was about that time, like a few years before I came onto Instagram, where we got the greenhouse. And I was like, you know what? I really want to see how to push this thing to the limits. And we were finding such good cuts because we were able to run so many plants in that greenhouse, that I was like, I need to take this indoor again. I need to revisit indoor and see if I can get some better quality. So then I started doing that, and just the amount of the hypocritical information that was going around on IG or even some of the forums back then, I was like, you could just save people so much money. When they have a question, they reach out to you in your DMs or something. If you know the answer to it, answer the question, help them out. If you don't know, try to find somebody that does know the answer, and kind of guide them that direction. So they're not, new growers fuck with their growth so much. And a lot of the times less is more. So it's been this whole journey of how can I save people money? How can I help them with their growth and get them off to the right start? And so after I kind of figured, I got enough bearing. I've been doing this for enough years and I understand the plant enough. I feel like I could reach out to people and, kind of tell them, where the better genetics were lying. A lot of new growers will jump on seed auctions or whatever with just, there's so many scammers out there and whatnot. I'd rather just guide them away. And help them out with their grow. And that's when I started the Caylx and Crew podcast. And we started talking directly with the breeders and getting some of the information of, there's so many people that fight over where'd this strain come from, where'd this strain come from. That's not what we're doing. It's more like, okay, this is what you were working with. Where did you get it from? What's your story with it, you know? So it's been a lot of fun doing that.
Doing an awesome job as well. I got to tip my hat to you on that. Uh, so let's get back to a little bit of the growing side of things there. So what age was it when you did start that grow outdoors? That couldn't have been the freshman year. Did you
Oh,
go
no.
from straight
No,
straight to
we were indoor when I was a freshman when we got those seeds. That's why I said we had like a little crawl space over at his house. We like dip into the crawl space and there was like a little concrete room, like an old bunker. And we fucking set everything up in there and grow in there. It wasn't until like a couple years after that that we did it outdoor. And we only did that for a couple years. And then I had a couple years break. So I don't know, when we came back to indoor growing, it was probably around like 2010, I want to say. 2012. Shit's getting fuzzy. It's been a while.
Oh, nobody's documenting it. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's trying to call any bluffs here, you know, shit like that.
Oh no.
So uh for- it's a so at one point, when you first started smoking, would you say, yeah, obviously it was on the recreational side? When did you kind of find the medical benefit to it, or was it
Oh yeah.
immediate?
No. Yeah, back then I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, it was strictly recreational. Like I want to see what this shit's all about. You know, all my friends seem to be having a great time with it. Um, the medical side, when I started thinking about medical, um, that came back indoor. That was definitely when I came back indoor, and uh, we were growing everything and heard realizing, you know, just you get certain smells. Like you go to your grandma's house has a certain smell, and that brings, you know, certain emotions about you. You smell that smell somewhere else, it reminds you of that, it might make you happy. So I always thought it was pretty cool that that sensory memory kind of played into how these terpenes affect you. Like there's so much more going on with cannabis than just THC, CBD, THCV, all these different cannabinoids. You know, the entourage effect of how those flavonoids and how those terpenes kind of work, and the balance of each one can just change it dramatically. You're high, you know, and when I got into that wormhole, it's like, wow, this really is amazing. And you know, they typical stoner, you know, well, you just haven't found the right strain, man. I'm not saying it's for everybody, but it's definitely something that needs to be explored to see what works for you, because it's not every strain that's going to work for you. I mean, we all know this. We've been smoking for a while. There's some stuff that your buddy might love that just does not work for you at all, or you don't appreciate the high on it.
I totally agree with that 100%. That's part of the beauty of cannabis, in my opinion. Uh, there's such a wide variety of it available. I'm always impressed how the different cultivar flowers can look so different. From,
Yeah.
you know, it's all cannabis and they're slightly different cultivars, but I mean, there can be quite the difference in
Oh yeah.
appearance and flower from one to the other. They are a beautiful one nonetheless, but it's uh it's nice to see the different changes in plant.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's a big thing that I appreciate about it too. When we got into like pheno hunting and whatnot, you know, the first time you crack a bunch of seeds, and I'm really into like landrace, heirloom, and true hybrids, like the older the better. Just because that's the stuff that I remember, you know, a lot of that stuff growing up, when cannabis first started having actual names. Um, and going back to some of that old stuff and getting some of those old flavors, even like white rhino or something like that, you home grow it now in this day. It doesn't taste the same as the stuff that we were getting back in the day, just because the amount of information that's out there now. Um, you know, a lot of people grew really good plants back then by doing less, you know, or growing in soil or these super soils even. I'm sure you're very familiar with that. You were a pretty big Subcool fan, right? He had a great soil mix. Um, the Rev had a really nice one. But the more I went down that KNF living soil hole, I really appreciated the terpene expressions that I was getting more during these pheno hunts. I felt like I was getting a lot more return on the terpenes than I was when I started with like organic, synganic bulk nutrients. But that's a cool thing. You pop all those different seeds and you don't know what to expect. You know, you might have a little bit of an idea of what the region was like or the conditions these plants grow in. But every part of that environment changes the expression of the plants, you know. So really when you pop them open, you're just kind of looking at all the different genotypes and okay, these are short and wide, these are broadleaf, narrowleaf. These ones are a bit taller, and there's those different expressions. But like you were saying, you nail that one down. Like we really like that dumpster pheno. So we'd save a couple females off of it, and then you grow it in a different environment. You try to grow it a little bit hotter or a little bit colder, or you try to put a little bit more light on it. And all these little changes in the environment can kind of change that phenotypical expression of that cultivar. It's a lot of fun seeing that. When we grew the Packy chocolate Thai in a warmer environment, like up to 85 degrees, it would put off a lot of Thai traits. The buds were really thick like a Packy, but they'd start getting foxtaily and whatnot, and they'd start looking Thai again. The leaves were super, super narrow on it. But then when we grow it in like 78, 79 degrees, the buds would be a lot tighter. They wouldn't foxtail hardly at all. They'd take more of that Packy structure on. And it still retained the Thai leaves, but they get a little bit wider. So it's kind of cool to see all those different changes in it.
How many different cultivars have you been able to grow in your cannabis experience so far?
That's a hard one, man. Oh, there's been a lot over the years. You know, some of them don't stand the test of time. You keep one and you like it, and it might ride with you for a year before you're like, this isn't for me anymore, or even a couple years before you know there's just something that you don't like about it and you're like, nah, it's not worth it anymore. It's very rare that one stands around for quite a while. I think the cut that I've held on to the longest was a Blue Magoo backcross twice that I got from Dynasty, and we did a big old pop on that one. And I found this one phenotype, all of them, it was backcrossed twice, so it was very, very inbred, or very stable, I should say, in its expression. So we weren't finding a lot of difference, but there was one that I remembered out of that we had in Seattle one time that just, it was so blueberry and musky and delicious. And a lot of the phenotypes or through that pop that we found, they had like this pine behind them, or they had like a greenish pine behind the berry. And that's not what I remembered from it. So we finally did nail down this one plant, and I've been calling it the Smarties pheno. But it's fucking beautiful and doesn't have that pine in it. It's just super berry, and I've held on to that cut for like 4 years now. But a lot of this stuff, if I like it, I'll just, you know, return it to seed and then do an outcrossing of it somewhere.
Can you describe the berry on that? Usually when I find the pine and the berry together, I describe it as kind of a dragon fruit kind of flavor, but it does have a little berry to it. It's hard to describe. It has, but there's
it's still there,
but it's fruity.
Yeah, I would say it's like the difference between, you know, you got some berries like blueberries or huckleberries that are, or nah, I guess huckleberries would, depends. Montana huckleberries are really sweet. But you got those berries that are sweet, and then you have berries that are kind of tart. And I feel like when it's kind of paired up with that pine, it kind of takes on more of the tarty berry flavor, if that makes sense. And it might just be how it pairs with that fucking terpene. I'm not sure.
It's weird because here pine is one of my favorite terpene profiles. I get that pine tar. I really enjoy it, and I've ran several cultivars here. I've had them sent to me from California. The J1, so super pine. Jack Green Suck sent it to me. I've had Xmas. I've had fucking Tiger King. I've had a few other strains roll through here that had that pine in it. And then there's something in my environment that refuses. Uh, in fact, Mr. Toad was on the other night, and I think we're kind of onto
Yeah.
something there. Uh, that refuses to let that pine come out. I'm always getting a slight pine on the back end, but it's more to the berry dragon fruit, kind of what I call it there. Uh, but yeah,
Do
it's
you
there's
remember
just
ever getting
my
more of those terpenes in your grow before you changed something?
no, no. I've never really changed. I've only been here for 5 years, so I've never really chased the pines since I've been here since the last few years. And so what me and Toad, what Mr. Toad were talking about, or what he had suggested, because again, the J1 came from California, and definitely when it was there expressed a heavy pine. That's why I sent it. Yeah, I got your pine, brother. Here it comes. And it got here and ran it out. I ran it out under fucking HBS. I ran it out under LED.
Wow.
Uh, in both instances, same, you know, and it's almost a joke these days. I live in the middle of a forest, a pine forest, and some say I'm not pine blind, or maybe they're suppressing. Now I don't think that's it, but I think Mr. Toad kind of was on the right path there, because all this time up until Toad, I was uh I was kind of asking the community. I'm like, man, there's got to be some way of deducing what's wrong with the environment or the pressure because of the terp suppression. You know what I mean? There's got to be a way to backtrack it. You know what I mean? And couldn't figure it out. It's been kind of a joke. Even I passed uh the Columbium strain here that we're doing a memorial cross for to Mr. Smiley, and he's already saying out of the environment, in his environment, it's expressing the vibe. So, but what we're thinking, and I've noticed, I never really put it together until Mr. Toad said something about off gassing. There's actually like a sewer drain, like right, you can't see it, right over there behind all that pile of lights. There's a 12-inch drain. This isn't and he's trying to, I just had recently, because I kind of noticed like a sulfury ish smell coming from it. So I capped it, put a tray over it with a weight and kind of try to close it off. But he was suggesting that there was some kind of gas, like they use basically for ripening fruits. I forget exactly the gas that they use for ripening fruits was coming out of there, or some type of mix of possibly sewer gases coming from there that was suppressing the pine terps, which made perfect sense. That's the only
That's
thing there that I could say would be different than any other grow room that's
yeah.
grown out the strains.
That's why community is important right there, getting all those different perspectives to kind of narrow down an issue like that. Like, how does somebody that's quite the thing to fucking deduce there. Find that how these gases are just all those different things that can happen in a grow.
There's definitely some smart people out there these days, man. We were talking about that pre-show. Some good content out there. Things are cool. The growers starting out these days are so lucky to have all this information out there when like I started 20 years ago, there wasn't information like this, man. I would have been so blessed to start right off the bat with all the good information that's out there, man. So it's a blessing right now.
Yeah,
Become
absolutely.
a home grower, cannabis grower in general.
Where'd you get some of your first information from?
Friends that were already growing. He was stupid enough to I was actually buying my cannabis from him for the longest time, and he ended up giving me couple cuts, kind of with the mentality of, you won't be able to do it. And I never bought any cannabis from him again. So, most of it, what I had picked up was, from hanging out in his grow room, listening to him brag a little bit there.
Nice.
Which, oddly enough, this is the funny part, Doc. You may appreciate this. This is way before Michigan had legal cannabis or medical cannabis. This gentleman was growing cannabis to put himself through medical school.
Nice. Fuck yeah.
But
I'm
I
just
always think
say,
it's funny.
they're not blind to it. It's the powers that be. You know, there's only one person stopping it. I think most of the world is on board now. Even the people that don't smoke, or at least most of the people that I know that don't smoke, they still have no problem with it. They just don't use it themselves. You know, it's been absolutely crazy. You know, I got arrested for cannabis. Want to say in '06, I believe it was in '06, and with minor in possession intent to distribute. And when I got arrested for that, my dad was fucking pissed. And my dad used to smoke cannabis back then. He smoked cannabis when we were growing up, when we were still really little. Um, but he stopped, he was being a dad figure and whatnot. And I don't blame him for this at all, but he just, they nailed my ass for that. Both my parents were upset with me. And now they see what I'm doing with cannabis now. And that's not just, oh, hey man, how's it going? There's actual information behind it. There's actual medical benefit behind this plant. There's so much that we can fix about this planet using cannabis. And they see that now and they're totally in support of it. My dad, actually, I got my dad growing again. He'll just grow a single plant outside, but he's fully in support of it. And even my mom, who's very centered religious, she even, will say, yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with this plant. So I don't think there's,
That's awesome.
I know there's lawyers, I know there's nurses, I know there's all kinds of people that smoke. Just in my personal life alone, I've met we talked to Duke the other day, Duke Diamond, on the podcast. And he was explaining how he was like an instrumentation tech. Like anybody in the world can smoke cannabis. It doesn't matter what you do. Doctor, lawyer, does not matter. Cannabis is good for everybody and it's for everybody.
I love to hear the conversion stories. The people that don't smoke cannabis, but now think, have changed their ways, their mentality on the plant. I actually love hearing that the vindication for cannabis these days, because it was unjust what they tried to run down our throats as kids. We see now was totally unjust. Moreover, I think as far as like the medicine and all that goes, I believe the pure part of the medicine comes from the cultivation side. There sure is. It has its weight medically, but I think it has just as much impact the cultivation side of it, especially if it is your medicine and you're taking the time to cultivate it for yourself, giving yourself that can do attitude and creating yourself a lifeline, if you will. It's very powerful.
Absolutely. I talked to Chef Sebastian Carosi. I don't know if you know him. I talked about him or talked with him on the podcast, and that's one of the things that we were talking about was no matter what the natural medicine is that you're trying to get, part of that therapy is the actual taking place, the actual happenings, and the actual doing of cultivating. Just having that time, that's something to do, something to focus on is a huge part of it. And we've seen that for years. With any medical treatment at all, a big part of it is having something to do, having an outlet, no matter whether you lift weights or you go out and you run or you cultivate cannabis, having that hobby, having that something to care about, focus on. And with cannabis, you have to pay attention. You have to be there. You have to nurture it. You have to take care of it. It's not one of those things with indoor cannabis where you can just water it, walk away for a week in most cases, and just hope it does well. Like out in the sun, that's much more forgiving, especially if you plant your plants in the ground. They can kind of acclimate. But that's not the case with indoor growing. So it does take a lot of focus. It does take a lot of attention. And when that passion takes hold, there's so many wormholes to go to, and there's so many things to focus on, read about, and learn. It's insane. That's what started all of this, was all those different wormholes. How can I grow cannabis better? Okay, well, I need to follow like a living soil theory or a super soil theory, or organics are better. And there's just all these different wormholes. And then where do you go from there? Okay, well, how do I build a no-till? How do I take care of this no-till? Oh, what are microbes? Oh, what's this microbe do? There's just so much. Everything has something else you want to know about. And that's when that you're passionate about growing cannabis. You care about that quality. You care about what you're doing with your product, no matter whether you're growing salt, whether you're growing organic, just putting your all into it and making sure you're putting forth a good medicine for people.
Oh, it's an amazing curve. It is, man. That organics especially uh is a deep, deep rabbit hole. Deep. And there's so many different directions. Once you get into fungi, microbes, and stuff like that, man, you can definitely stage left for a minute before you go deeper into other stuff. But it's funny that as you take on that curve, man, lots of people do it so they can uh, start growing better cannabis, but along the way, the education of how to grow the plant, they tend to grow themselves especially as they get down the organic side of things, man. You tend to learn to be a better steward overall, of this plant, and then it kind of transfer. That's the part that I think is usually funny is, we set out to do it for the plant, and then we're all at one point we dip down that organics road, and we're like, huh, I can really start composting some shit around the house. I can start applying to what I'm learning to a garden.
Yeah. And that was my big rabbit hole with KNF, was when I was introduced to Chris Trump, and he taught how to do water soluble calcium from eggshells. And it's like, oh my God, I don't gotta buy this shit anymore. Like, I use eggs all the time. I could just clean this, make some fucking calcium, give them a foliar, and they're happy. Like, that was a huge rabbit hole for me. It's like, I can not, like you were saying with composting, I can use the stuff around my house and I can get it to, there's more ways than that you can use it. Everything is a nutrient. And when you take a plant outdoor and you throw it straight into the ground, in most cases, not all over the US, but especially here in the Pacific Northwest, we have a really, really nice loamy soil. Kind of where we're at, it gets a little bit more clay, but it's a very nutrient rich soil. And when they can acclimate to the outdoors, when they're used to living their whole life out there, especially a taproot plant that can just shoot down into that soil and really spread out, versus a clone cutting, if you're growing from seed, they really do take care of themselves very, very well up here. And that's just not the case indoor. Like you really have to build up a good soil. I remember when I'd first come back to indoor growing, it's like, okay, well, what's a good organic soil? It's like, oh, I need a happy frog. I don't know if you can get sued for that. I'm just saying, happy frog, ocean forest. Um, and use the ocean forest for like flower, use the happy frog for bloom. But then I'd buy like the bulk nutrients that Roots Organics had too. And there was like 7 different bottles. And as a new grower, you know, or somebody that's finally kind of trying to figure it out, throwing 7 different balls together, mixing those pHing, that's like so much to focus on, you know, as a new grower. It's like just set myself up for failure. So then it was just, how can I make this easier on myself? And then how can I be more organic and how can I get better terpene retention?
So when exactly did you dive into the K and F side of things, man? That's a deep hole as
It
far
had to
as
have been
this
like
goes,
four
man.
years
That
ago.
one, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say about 4 years ago. We were growing with the Roots Organics line, like I said, and that took quite a while to figure out, especially like I said, 7 balls for somebody that's just trying to figure out what they were doing. We did that for a couple years. And then I got into top dressings and I wasn't happy with how long it was taking them to break down by themselves. I still approve of top dressings, just you know, relying strictly on that and trying to time it where you've applied your top dressing and it's going to hit the plant when it needs it. And you're being more proactive than reactive, you know? And then I started getting into like, I was testing out all kinds of super soils there for a couple of years. I did subcools, I did coots, I did swami or the gas mix. Um, oh, and I did the revs mix too. The revs mix was a lot. That was a complicated soil to mix. And it took me a while to kind of simplify that where I like it. Um, but growing all those different ones, and I really appreciated the super soil, but there's a lot of work, you know, going back into re-amending it, testing your soil, seeing where your nutrient levels are and stuff like that. If it's something that you're, you know, re-amending, letting it cook and waiting while you got some new soil to throw in there. So it's like, okay, well, I want to completely avoid this now. And that's kind of when I went into the KNF no-till type of style. Like, how can I make this easier? How can I reduce my waste and produce a better organic flour?
I'm honestly kind of interested in the K and F myself, but man, I find it to be such a deep rabbit hole already, man. Once I start bokashiing around here and brewing things, they are going to be upset with me around the house already. That's why I said that when I started dipping my feet seriously into organics. I was like, man, this is going to be a fine line between not going full balls into bokashi and wanting to take care of everything I can around the house,
Yeah.
reusing everything, you know. It so I definitely see the value in it. The more and more people I talk to, being able to IPM purposes, use your environment to feed your plant. Why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? You know what I've kind of learned in some of the research and that type of thing, regenerative farming, KNF. Some of these big farms, what they should have been doing responsibly to begin with, they're coming back to now and waking up to it because of cost factor. They could
Yeah.
have been doing it all along, but now that they're going belly up for most of the prices and whatnot being thrown at them, they're forced to being able to cut costs, and now they're looking into regenerative farming and everything else they can do, and they're like, wow, this
It's
is as
pretty
cheap
incredible.
as awesome, and my farm's never been better than it ever has. And they should have, they could have, should have started there.
See, and
Instead, they're going,
I don't have any hate for salts at all. I know there's the big, IG communities that are like, oh, salt growers and organic growers. I don't care. I just care that you're growing a plant. Honestly, that's what I want everybody doing. Fucking grow a plant. Get into it. The big thing about me going the organic route and not the synthetic route was when I was growing up, my dad was a farmer and he was an agricultural farmer. We had peaches, or not peaches, we had pears, we had apples, we had cherries, and we had a lot of farmland. So I was kind of able to run around that farmland growing up and be around agriculture, grow up with it, learn how to farm. Um, and we'd have a field worker that would come out and he'd come out once a month or whatever, and he'd say, oh, you need to spray this, you need to spray this, you need to spray this, you know, you need to feed this, we need to spray this. And it's like, and it's all chemical based stuff and it's hardcore stuff. There was this stuff that we used to spray that was, I want to say it was called malathion or guthion. And you go down the orchard rows, you'd spray that and you'd see birds falling dead out of the trees. Like it was hardcore stuff. And that was way back when, it was 90s, but it just the stuff that they'll spray on, and this is fruit that's going out to you, and that's no hate on my dad. That's just how farming was back then. But that really was a deterrent where I was like, there's got to be a better way. You pick an apple off a tree before it's hit the supermarket, you're looking at it and you go, wow, I've got to wash this. There's white powder all over it and chemicals and shit. It's just like, man, and this is what we're consuming. It's this big scheme with a lot of corporations, that, oh, this is going to kill it. I can push this, we'll mark it up a lot, and sell it to all these farmers. And, I mean, most people around the United States know farmers aren't typically well-off people that can afford a lot of these nutrients. So why can't we grow better fruit while also helping the planet, reducing our waste, reducing our costs? I mean, I don't see a downfall. I don't see a downside to it. I don't see an X factor.
yeah, I agree. It's sad that they were pushed at some points to kind of for maximal yields and to kind of be converted over to salts as well, on a larger scale. So I've had a couple of farmers on people with farm history, but I never asked them the question I'd like to ask you tonight. So with the farm background, what are your thoughts necessarily on the larger scale of cannabis growing? Farmers wanting to follow the cash crop. Do you see, uh, how do you feel about that? And do you see it's any kind of environmental impact from the shift? Weeds, corns, and stuff. A lot of what the breadbasket are growing right now. If they divert over to cannabis, it's not necessarily as edible for the food chain. You know what I mean? That may be nibbling on the farmers' fields and stuff like that. Do you think there may be a huge impact? Because at that point, again, we have money involved, and there it will be companies wanting to dump nothing but salts on the fields again because they don't learn from history. You know what I mean? Do you see a huge impact, environmental impact, or what's your thoughts on the whole?
I would
Uh,
I would say there's already been a huge impact from it. This isn't anything new. We've got multi-billionaires that own most of the farmland in the United States, and these companies are typically around salt-based nutrients, and that's a big part is erosion of the soils into the seabed and even poisoning the ocean. There's a lot of X factors that come from that style of farming. it's understandable why they use it, you know. Especially like I was listening to a podcast the other day that was talking about Morocco, and a lot of the Moroccan cannabis nowadays is on drip irrigation lines, and they're feeding it with synthetic nutrients. Why? Because they don't really have a soil. They have a really rocky, mossy bed, so it's more like an outdoor hydroponic system. So it's kind of crazy. So there's a lot of different X factors. Where is this cannabis being planted? Even with apples and stuff like that, apples never came from the United States. That was something that was introduced, and I believe they came from the Russian Tibetan area, maybe somewhere in there. I want to say it was Russia though, and they were wild apples, and they came over. And anytime you bring something, especially with agriculture, you bring some other plant life into an area that's not used to, one of the things that's going to happen is, yes, it's going to have a bad, it's going to have some kind of effect on that microclimate. Um, and it also depends, like we said, what kind of nutrition they're being fed. Are they getting organic nutrients? Are they getting synthetic nutrients? Um, Even in that, there's a way to run synthetic nutrients really cleanly. But eventually it's got to end up somewhere, right? So yeah, it's always going to have some kind of effect. The thing about that is when you plant something, and that's like the difference between land race and heirloom, is when you take something from somewhere else, it's not putting off that same expression that it would in its home environment, right? You take it somewhere else, it's got to learn to acclimate and express itself where it's going to grow the best in that environment. And that's the same thing that we're seeing with apples and all these other things, is they're adjusting and they're being bred to kind of work with that environment. But that does take time. And while that time is being taken for that plant to acclimate to that environment, it is having some kind of effect on it. Whether the soil food web is a huge thing, and that's a deep dive. You could really get deep into that question, as far as, well, now this plant life's being eaten by this animal, and this is affecting the feed of these predators to that animal, and it just goes around and around. I hope that answered your question. I'm already high. That's a deep wormhole.
Cannabis in general is a deep wormhole. That's what I love about it, man. There's so many facets to it. So, are you currently growing outdoors as well? Which do you prefer, for indoor, outdoor, greenhouse? Sounds like you've had some.
Well, see, that I've told people for a long time. Right now, I'm all about indoor because there's just so much I'm still learning about indoor to this day. We have our own Discord for the podcast. Anybody can sign up for it. It's completely free, and the link's in my bio. But you can go in there, and there's so many different types of growers that are doing so many different types of things that I've never even tried before. We've got one guy, Shiggity Flips. He's awesome. But he grows in those sub-irrigated planters. Have you seen those? I remember seeing them back in the day. And I had a few local people to me that were using them, and I was just like, man, that's a lot of work. Here I am fucking re-amending all my soil and shit. But I've seen some of the results these guys are getting off of it, and I was like, you know what? I wouldn't mind doing one little sip or a few sips with like a scrog net over it. I think that would be a lot of fun. And I asked him, I said, has anybody ever done this like in a no-till style? Because you don't really use a cover crop or anything with a sip system. They usually put a cover over it. And that was really interesting too, because then all that moisture kind of condenses on the top of that plastic, and it creates like a rainfall effect back on the soil. I thought that just natural process was so fucking crazy. So I was like, yeah, I might try this out, or even like scrogging. I've never scrogged. I've always done like multi-top plants, single top plants, natural, or I've staked and supported a lot, but typically with pheno hunting, I'm growing a lot more plants in a lot smaller pots. So, I'm not going to scrog out something that I got in a 1 gallon. So I'm being introduced to these new styles, and it's pretty cool. New to
I'm
me.
not a fan of the scrub. Not a fan. I've run it a few
Okay, can I
times.
ask why though? Because I think it's the same reason that I never did scrub.
For one is I can't get in there and manipulate the plants as much as I'd like to.
Yeah.
Uh, Leaning over because it's always in a 4x4, playing with the shit in the back. If you lean on that, it doesn't take long to really kill the lower back
Oh
to
yeah,
get that shit in the back.
exactly
If
what
there
I've
was
never
a
done it.
harvest, man, I could probably go on and on and on. Harvest, but one of the big things is being able to not manipulate, move the plant. Back here in the setup that I got, everything's on plant movers, 10-gallon pots. So I can actually, one-handed, if I need to get in there and do some defoliating, I do what I can reach and then spin it. Defoliate, spin, defoliate, spin, or
Nice.
just a daily Mr. Tight method of, giving it a quarter spin every day if you want to get that, anal about it. But yeah, I like to get in there and be able to do what I got to do. And the other reason is I like the flop, to be honest with you. I don't necessarily stake till the last minute, and I don't really believe, not staking early and a little bit of root pruning, we'll call it. That's what I call it when I laid on staking. Little root pruning,
Yeah,
shake. You know what I mean? There's
strong
at
roots of
that point there should be a lot going on at that point. But I believe letting them grow up like I kind of do, and letting them stress and flop a little bit is stress that's creating more terpene production and more THC, more trichome production in general. I like that
good.
stress. If you're growing outdoors, that's what you're going to get to help. You know, I think people coddle the plants a little bit too much as far as not letting them do their thing and flop, keeping them nice and pretty. They're robbing themselves a little bit of terpenes and shit.
Oh yeah. Some of my favorite grows were like the old HPS grows where we wouldn't support anything unless it needed it. If I saw, okay, that branch is
Yo-yos.
getting a little too bendy
Why
there,
don't you see the
it will grow
yo-yos
yo-yo.
anymore?
I still use yo-yos. Still use the yo-yos. Fuck them, they're awesome. They're awesome. But yeah, that back when we did HPS grows, we had a 4x8 and we had two 600 watts on each side. Um, and some of those grows we were doing like I'm trying to remember what we were growing at that time. It was like a sour diesel cross. Um, but they would throw off these massive big fat colas and they'd be flopping all over the place. And yeah, it was just a matter of, okay, that branch is bending. And that was kind of like a sense of pride. You saw the bend. Um, but then you reach in there one day and you're like, okay, you're bent a little too much. And then it was just so convenient just grabbing a yo-yo and boom, you know, we're good. You just gotta set it where you want it. Press the button, let it hold it. Yeah, no, I still miss those HPS grows. I feel like I'm getting better trichome production, better trichome populations. I feel like I'm getting stronger terpenes and overall denser buds. Um, you know, as much as one can express more, just that spectrum of light. The orange light kind of just produced a little bit of a fluffier bud. But the yield was so beautiful too. So it was kind of like a payoff. Like, okay, these buds might look a little bit smaller, they're a little bit denser though. And you got better resin production versus this big old donkey dick, if I can say that. And yeah, it might not be as sparkly, but damn, look at that thing. And some of that bud was really good back then. that New York City diesel. We grew New York City diesel for a while, and that was always a killer. The yield on that was great, especially for a diesel. And it wasn't the sparkliest stuff in the world, but man, it would fucking rip your head off.
Oh, it's a great strain right there.
That's one of my favorites.
You know, as you can see, I'm not hating the HPS either. You know,
Right.
they're not broken. They're not broken, but I run a multitude of LEDs, panel bar lights, and shit like that as well. And there's still a learning curve there as well. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
Oh yeah.
Most of the ones that are being put out now, I feel are a little bit too strong for the environments tense that they're being thrown in, man. A lot of extra money for something you're gonna dial back.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
That's
Uh,
definitely something I've seen is using a lot less power on them, you know. That's been cool, but I have a hard time. I'm a stubborn son of a bitch, so sometimes it takes me a while to get with the times. Let me ask you a question. How do you measure your distance from your lights to your canopy? Like, do you use a par meter? Do you check
I
PPF?
don't.
What do you do?
Well, most of them are fixed. As you can see, these HPS are behind me are fixed. Uh, I
Okay.
kind of use my hand necessarily. Them are all 1,000 watts behind me at 4x8
I love
tens.
it. I
Uh,
love it. My guys are
so
asking me that,
I
and
tried.
something I said is that's how we check shit. Like, is it comfortable or not?
Well, you know, I find that only kind of really works with these HPS, though.
Oh
You know
yeah.
what I
Oh
mean? With
yeah.
the
Fucking to and
LEDs,
fro.
it's a little bit different of a game there, man. It's harder to unlock those. But yeah, you know, basically, if my hand can't take it or I can feel it,
Might be a little
it's
hot.
about right. But you know, foot foot away from them, I find doesn't necessarily cause any bleaching or ill
Oh no.
effects.
I'm not hating
Not
at
in these
all. I
areas.
miss my
If they
HP.
tend to grow up, I'll pull them back. I actually will stake on an angle. I'm kind of known for that. Just kind of one on a 60 and pull that branch back and open up a little bit more room for things in the center. I don't really necessarily like what I have done the last minute kind of super crop or bend her over a little bit. Man, once some buds, you know, are growing nicely this way and they have to switch and go
Yeah.
this way,
Yeah. Start
something
getting that
gets
Tyler.
changed.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's that, you know, it sounds like it's pretty damn similar between how you're growing and how we grew when we were doing those HPS. It's about the same thing. We were spreading them out, you know, really stripping them up, letting them, you know, return and kind of get used to their canopy again and then flip them, you know. And that was a big part of it. And yeah, some of the guys in my Discord, they were laughing at me the other day because they were a lot of them were talking, you know, newer stuff like the PPFD meters and or the par meters and PPFD and all this stuff. And I'm just like, this is still how I grow. Like I just watch my plant, see how it reacts, and you know, I'll go from there, adjust accordingly. But that's that old stubborn mentality from those HBS growths because that's just what I'm used to, you know. With a lot of that information, it was just you do it and if it works for you, then you keep doing it.
You know, as far as like the LED side of things, man, try to follow somewhat the manufacturers suggest hang rate, but I usually same thing. I leave them right into place, and because they're usually pretty good sized plants when I flip into them, so I'm already kind of worried about them chasing the light up anyway during stretch. I'm already figuring out ways to manipulate them to stop it. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
I've learned several ways over the years to kind of slow them down at that phase. But uh, I said this the other night, and I showed some pictures of bar light, low Pro Max 660, and every things grew up and passed in some cases. I actually manipulated the buds to where they ran between the bars because they kind of overshot there. But I think that at that point, man, they just kind of learned to accept that light, that LED, transfer that energy a little further down, if not just kind of shut themselves off and let that energy go a little deeper.
The plant has a natural ability to acclimate no matter what, the conditions are. They deal with a lot more stuff outdoor as far as, okay, well, what's going on with the lack of light here? Or this plant might be behind a bush getting shaded a lot more. They'll still find a way to grow. That's just cannabis's job, is to find
I
that way.
find that I was appreciating early on you kind of preaching, not preaching, but suggesting. I don't like to say the preaching, suggesting the simplicity method method towards cannabis. Uh, because it's true. It with the that's the only downside to the current flood of information is I think people are too quick to try to incorporate every little trick into their grow just because Top Show talked about it this week. It needs to be taken directly into the grow room applied to, you know what I mean? I think
Yep.
what I've what I've always tried to preach from day one, and I said the word. Well, I'm going to say it because it's not my advice. I'm telling anybody to follow. You know what I mean? I tell people to take in, watch these shows, see where the dots line up, and they as you watch these shows, you will undoubtedly see the truths line up. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then run with your method from what you see lined up. Read into what the page says in front of you after you've seen, but you don't have to necessarily. I seen this. I seen this. I seen this. I seen this. At some point, I appreciate a lot of the super great technical information on some of these shows,
Oh yeah,
but in some of
absolutely.
these point, I think it kind of scares off some of the newer growers or think they have to be that technical. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? To produce a flower and again, I appreciate it for the people that are going or trying to take it to a more technical level or appreciate what you're doing in the soil or you're trying to go take it to that next large scale method and a lot of times I think for the most part the newbie it's just scaring them off. They watch one of these shows, hear a lot of these technical terms and stuff like that, and they go, oh shit, I might want to get a book, or you know what I mean. uh, but it is like we're talking, it's a beautiful resilient plant and it's there for you to make mistakes on. It's a learning curve for you both is what I found with cannabis.
Yes, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I talk to my guys about in the Discord, and I welcome anybody in there because there's guys that grow better than me that have been growing a lot longer. You've been growing a lot longer than me. There's so many people that you can learn from, and so many people have their specialty or their style. And I think it's kind of everybody's job to find somebody that they like that's been doing something that they want to do in their own grow, something that they want to incorporate in their own grow. And everything that that person does is not going to work for them. They're going to have to change something. They're going to have to run things a little bit different to dial in their environment the way that it's supposed to be in their conditions. So then you start following other people that do something along the lines of what you're looking for there. And all these little pieces that you're pulling apart from everybody's grow to help your own kind of is what develops that style. And I want it to be as welcoming as possible for people. So we go in there and we say good morning to each other every day, you know, and it's like, wow, we're just supportive of it. It doesn't matter if you're growing like a little 1 ounce, 3 gallon plant or whatever, you know, we're just going to try to make it better next time. You know, we're trying to get it as good as it can be. And that's a big part of it is being supportive, because if you have a new grower that comes in like I did, you know, it was really hard for me when I'm going, okay, there's 7 different bottles that I got to mix up. Like, do I need this right now? Is this chart right? You know, how much nitrogen is too much nitrogen? By the way, 7 milliliters. With that one.
That's one thing I do not miss about the bottle shit is you're caught in it, man. Especially once, you know, some systems, there's so many pieces to the puzzle. And I think a lot of them are being put in too much because they're in, just so much excess, so many pieces to the puzzle. And then once you decide you want to get out of that in particular uh, brand or whatever, you're locked in the system, especially if it's a multi. That's the worst ones to get in because at that point, as you kind of pointed out, you got 8 pieces to the puzzle, and now you're like, I'm gonna quit this thing. I hate this lineup, but as soon as I'm out of everything, I'm gonna quit. But you run out bottle by
right,
bottle. So
right.
so
and then
yeah,
finally
at some
get
point
off
you
of
just gotta
got like 8 bottles that are still 3/4 of the way full. Just like
yep. You gotta
one
call a loss.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, I had a goddamn it. I had a question for you on that one. Um so when you were using bottles, what bottles were you using?
I have went through a bunch of testing phase. I ran the Blue Planet nutrients for a long time. I ran, of course, Fox Farm, which Fox Farm was.
Everybody's done Fox Farms. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
there.
I,
It's there, man.
it's sad but true. The biomarine, the general hydroponics, the bio series there, I used for quite some time. I was really happy with that lineup until this was like a game changer with me, and that with nutrients and organics as well. Is they had a biomarine, which is like a squid based. And so I went to the grocery store, picked up a bottle. I never even thought about it. And I was in need. I was out. And I went to the local grocery store, which I didn't really care for to begin with. You know, the guys from right from the get, I watch give bad advice and just want you to
Oh,
throw
great.
more money after more money after more money after shit. And the game changer with me with that cat was the worst hash advice I'd ever heard. He was like, man, yeah, I just beat it up into a cooler and I let it melt. And when I get out of that, the next day, I'm like, next day, you know, it was just,
In a
it was all just,
with no airflow?
yeah, yeah. It was just, it was completely bad advice. So basically, he sold me a gallon. I bought I'm cheap, you know what I mean? And that was the harder thing about getting out of the bottle nutrients because I'm not buying the quarts because I know if I buy a gallon, I'm getting a free quart at least. You know what I mean? By buying the gallon, I'm saving already and I'm getting a free quart. I like that free. So I
Right.
buy a gallon of the biomarine and I get it home, and it's a holiday weekend, and I pull the cap off, and the seal's already broke,
Oh,
and it is friggin' rank, and it never smells good, right? Never smells
yeah,
good.
no, there's a difference.
So I kind of, I this at this point, I'm very naive on organics, to be very honest. You know what I mean? I'm taking the word for the manufacturer that when I'm putting in the, on my plants is organic and all this other bullshit. And I pull this off and I'm like, oh, man, I don't know.
It's just organics.
No.
Must be the organic.
Yeah. And I dumped that shit all over my plants, like 2 applications, and it just, oh, it was so bad. So bad. And then after that, man, I started checking bottles before I bought them. I'd pull the lid off, make sure it was sealed and shit like that. But man, it's a horrible experience right there with your.
Oh
But
yeah, you have to. You know,
so
and
I've been,
that's one of the things that I loved about KNF is I could take all this stuff that, some of it you would never eat or taste in your life, but all these different inputs that I can make, they're edible for people. My OHN, I can drink my OHN, my FPJ, yeah, it might be made out of dandelions and shit, but I'll dip my finger in it and taste it, you know, and it's actually pretty damn good. We've been making dandelion tea for years. A lot of people don't know that dandelions were so widely consumed. But you can take things like this and make it, and not only is, a lot of these bottle nutrients, would you take a swig of it? Probably not.
God, no.
Sorry, you got a problem. In most cases. But yeah, like my OHN, my vinegar, these are all things that we consume. They're good for your plants and they're good for you too. And I think that's a big safety net for a lot of growers, is knowing that what they're putting in there is something that is natural. It's nature. We're just speeding it up.
Yeah, yeah. I completely agree. Man, it did, like we were talking about earlier, man. Microbes and all that other good shit, man. That was a nice side turn for me. I got lost. I'm still lost in the fungus and microbes, to be honest with you. Man, it was very eye opening. The cycle, what's going on in the soil, and what's going on in our gut biome. Our second mind. I think that there's no coincidence to it all. To be honest with you, I'm becoming quite the hippie. If you will, the doors that are being opened with the micros and stuff like that, gut biome,
Yeah.
um, how we can culture good and bad. We try to culture certain microbes in our soil for our plants, but the same can be had with our gut biomes. I think with white sugars, I think same shit, man. You start culturing them gut biome, excuse me, with the wrong sugars, syrups, corn syrups, white sugars and stuff like that, man, you instantly promoting a different gut biome. It's not the good anymore. You're promoting the bad, slows things down, starts some bloating. Same thing with the soil, man. You cultivating too heavy to one side, get the wrong end there. Oh,
Oh
you can
yeah.
have shit
That's
go
some shit.
south on you. That's for sure.
And that's why I was saying with the nitrogen being too much, the only reason I laugh about it is not because I'm making fun of new growers, but it's one of those been there, done that, a few times and back. And because I'm one of those people, like I said, that's just very stubborn and hard headed, and I need to learn the hard way sometimes. And I've had those plants that are fucking clawed because I wasn't being conscious of what I was feeding them. And it was just like, oh, plant, like Duke Diamond said, plant green, plant good. I always love that fucking term. Um, but yeah, that was kind of my mindset with growing. Is it you overthink a lot of things. Okay, yeah, my plant's green, but it's lime green. Is it not dark enough? Is it starting to starve out of something? Just, instead of looking at it, it's praying, it's happy, let's write it out and see, you know. And you can start learning through all those practices, the warning signs of, oh, does this plant too hot? Is it too cold? Does it need nitrogen, or is it too much nitrogen, or am I getting a calcium deficiency? Whatever it may be. And you start reading those warning signs for that, and it's just experience, just like anything else. You want to be a photographer, you're not going to be a great photographer because you read 5 books on photography. You're going to get good at it by going out there and playing with exposures and shit like that. Every sort of art in growing cannabis is no different. It's farming, it's an art, it's a passion, and it takes a lot of experience, to really do it right.
My first experience with anything close to KNF was completely accidental, but noteworthy right off the bat. Was making hash, to be honest with you.
Oh,
And
really?
so, yeah. And so I was making my bubble hash, and I was seeing all this water build up around me. It's super turby. I was thinking, man, I wonder if I can add this back into my plants and have that terpenes come, rushing right back into the plant. So I let it sit overnight, and I cut it in half, and then I watered it into my plants, and they love that shit. Now every time
Really?
I save every bit of it for
I've never
the
done that. That's
girls.
cool.
Oh, they will thank you. Yeah. The next time you make some bubble, it's everything they need in that water, man.
Oh,
They
yeah, sure.
they'll be praying to that light. They'll be the terps in that room will be so strong. The following few days, man, they'll be super happy. Trust me, you will
So
not
you
regret
so you did
picking.
like more of a Jadam type thing. Like you said you make the bubble hash and then you let the water sit out overnight.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what it
Yeah. So like more of an anaerobic style.
is. I wouldn't. I dare say anaerobic because it's not sitting that long. Again, I don't know how long it takes to turn, but I do. I wouldn't.
Oh no, no. I'm not dissing on it at all. Um, but there's no, oxygen movement within it. You're not brewing it like a tea or anything like that. You're just letting
No.
it sit and then feeding it first thing in the morning.
If anything, I'm letting it warm up
Okay.
because
That's
it's
very,
too
very
cold to give directly to the plant, basically.
gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's really cool, man. Yeah, and that's gonna help with it too, is staying cold before it, acclimates to the room temperature to be able to feed the plants. That's cool. I like that. I'm gonna have to try that out sometime.
Thank you. I promise you will.
This is the Goose Bay blueberry crossed with the grapefruit from Relic Seeds. This was one of the ones that we hunted recently. It was a lot of fun. I have a lot of love for that old grapefruit, and I've been trying to find things that he's crossed. Him and Solo are both really working that grapefruit, and I've been trying to find some of these grapefruit outcrossings that I like more than the grapefruit, because the grapefruit's one of my favorite ones of all time, and they're good. Like, I love grapefruit, so everything they outcross it to, like, I'm gonna find something I like out of it. But I haven't found anything that's better than just the grapefruit yet.
So you were saying earlier on that you like the funky rank. So what has been the funkiest? I mean, cannabis can express so many different turf profiles, man. I've heard pepperoni,
Oh
dirty diaper, fucking piss,
yeah.
What's been the rankiest profile you've come across so far?
Man,
Or how do you interpret it? Guess I should say, because how your nose pick it up and you describe it can be.
the ones that I've grown personally, I would say this one that we just got, that we hunted and found the plant that we liked, was that dumpster pheno. That one was really, that one's rank, but it's a different kind of rank. Like I said, it's like it's not skunky. I wouldn't say skunk. I would just say like if you ever let your garbage sit and like you get that wet, nasty one that you're like, oh, I don't want to take this out like this. Phew. Like that's kind of what it smells like to me. It's just offensive, and that's the kind of stuff that I like outside. And I can't believe I'm going to say this because I'm not the biggest cookies fan in the world, but I will say that meat breath by Thug Bug. That one was really stanky. I've never grown that one, but every time I've smelled somebody else that's grown it, it's been like overly, wow, that thing is offensive, but it's a good offensive.
Right on. I know exactly what you're talking about. That shit is very loud.
It's a
Very
good.
loud, but unfortunately, what I found with anything kind of cross with that is a super long flowering time. So that's ends my love affair with anything that 12 weeks or better. I kind of cross the line at, you know what I mean? And I know that's where some really nice, potent, psychedelic cannabis lies is after that 12 weeks. But I just don't have the patience for it, I guess, or it doesn't meet the cycle, the perpetual, I guess.
I don't blame you. It's, and that's one of the funny things about me chasing after some of these old ones. Like, I just love it. I don't know how to explain it. I like getting flavors that I don't see in a lot of cannabis these days. Like a lot of, I'm not hating at all, but there is a lot of stuff that's using the same genetics, and so there's so many similarities. There's a lot of stuff that's just like, okay, this smells like that and that and that and that. I'm just, I want to find something different. I appreciate finding something that's like, holy fuck, this one tastes like cinnamon, or this one's got fucking peaches in it, or it's just something that you don't see very often. And that's what I appreciate about these. But we recently got done with a, not recent, I guess it's been a while now, but we got done hunting the Egyptian landrace, the Sinai, and there was two main genotypes out of that. There was really tall, more sativa leaning plants, and they typically put off like this lemon pine, like a lemon musky spicy pine type of deal. And then like 25% or less. I even had friends that popped like 50 seeds of them and didn't even find this genotype at all. That's how rare it was. But for me, and it came from the same stock. But about 25% of them were broadleaf and they were shorter and bushier. And those phenotypes would have a thicker bud and they'd put off a peach flavor. And that's what I really wanted, because I'm not a breeder or anything, but I am interested in breeding and I'm trying to learn more about it. And I appreciate fucking around with these genetics and seeing what I can create. And one of the things that I wanted was I wasn't finding a peach terpene in a lot of the genetics that were out there. And I found a lot of the peach genetics that I were getting were more along that like clementine mimosa, where, okay, it's not peach, it's just an orange flavor. It's another orange, it's a different orange. But I want something that truly tastes like peach. So I found the terpene that was responsible for that, and it was granule. And it said granule was really good for stress, depression, which is something that, I take cannabis for. So it kind of hit close to home. It's like, wow, I found a terpene that I really love and it's really going to work for me. So I was really, really interested in that hunt. We popped a lot of seeds, and I found that the only plant in that population was that broadleaf dominant plant that would put off that really heavy peach flavor. And even at that, some of them were kind of low on the peach, and they would put off more. That granule would express more as like a rose type scent. So then you have an even smaller population because these ones are the ones that can, have that linked genetic where, broadleaf and peach. But then you have the subsection even within that population of, okay, this is more rose, this is more peach. So then you're even more limited. Um, I'm still kicking myself in the ass for this to this day. Luckily, I have a friend that worked with the narrow leaf dominant, and I don't regret my decision at all, because we do have that mother now, and she's beautiful, and she tastes like peaches no matter what, whether you grow her hot, whether you grow her cold. Um, it's a really, really beautiful strain. But when we were smoking it, when we were doing our final smoke, I like hazy stuff, but I like clear-headed stuff. Like Professor did a lot of work with like the Cali Mist, and the Cali Mist is like that. It's very up, but it's very clear-headed. Yeah, I can get about my day without, like some of the original haze ones where you're just wigging out, and when I went through those, I didn't know what to expect from an Egyptian landrace, but they are a sativa. Um, Technically, they're more along that like hazy type structure, in that hazy type smoke. They really got a spiciness to the narrow leaf phenotypes. But when we were smoking these, the broadleaf dominant, my peach, she would make you more chill. She was kind of relaxing. She wasn't put down at all. But it's very even keel. It's not the most potent stuff. It's not going to knock you out, but that's not what I was going after. I wasn't going after potency. I was going after flavor. I was going for that specific terpene to see if I could breed into something else that would, add to what I want her to be, while crossing over that terpene, or seeing how that terpene reacts with different profiles and what it's dominant against, or what it's recessive against. And when we smoked the narrow leaf, those ones were way opposite of the spectrum. Like I said, they were more like that hazy, and they would be very, very spicy and lemon. And I didn't think much of them at first, and the buds were kind of in, they're really fluffy and kind of, just nothing to them. But there was this one phenotype that we smoked, or and I was sitting out on my back porch, and I'm smoking this joint of this lemon one, and we rolled it up, and I'm smoking it, and I'm sitting out there, and when you're sitting outside and all of a sudden the clouds part and it just like brightens up, somebody turning the dimmer up, and I'm sitting there smoking, not thinking much of anything, really clear-headed, and all of a sudden it gets brighter like that, and it was like, oh wow. And I looked up in the sky, and there wasn't any damn clouds in the sky at all. Like, it was a clear ass day. And then all of a sudden I could hear the birds chirping, but it sounded like they were right next to my ear, like my auditory was just completely expanded. And I was like, wow. And I didn't save a single cut off this one at all, because that's not what I was chasing after. That's not what I was looking for. But it was pretty impressive how psychedelic and potent that one was. It even almost make you feel like the ground was doing that wave, like when you used to smoke when you were a kid, or like you'd lay in bed and get the spinning, floating feeling. I miss that.
So with breeding in mind in the long run, and peach being a terp profile that you're kind of coveting and enjoy at the moment, are you more suited to try to find you a peach female, or do you want to try to find that peach male that may, I mean, how do you look on, how do you plan on, I guess, introducing it into something else? In my opinion, that's going to come from a well-worked male that you kind of know that whatever you throw him at, he's going to bring that peach. You know what I mean? That add
Yeah.
that to it. So, how do you prefer, how are you going to go about sustaining it in your line? Are you going to try to find that peach male, or are you just going to have an in particular peach line with what you find, and then find multiple moms and maybe
So
jump off of that?
what I already did out of that one was, I wasn't trying to do a preservation or something. That's not me. That's not what I'm trying to do. Because anybody knows, like, if you want to get into breeding, and I'm not saying I'm the head authority. Like I said, I'm not a breeder at all. I'm just, figuring this out. I have a lot of friends that do it, and they've been teaching me a lot about it. So I'm just trying my hand at it. I'm just playing around and having fun. I've given out a lot of seeds and had people test them, but I have not sold a single seed, and I don't plan to anytime soon. But one of the things that we were doing that I was taught, and I'm definitely seeing this reciprocate in my work, is when you want to change something like that, if you have a very, very dominant female, the male is more so to unlock different traits about that female that you want to bring into it. So if I'm trying to add color, I'm going to find a male that's really colorful and breed it to a plant that I want to have that color because I want to introduce it into it. You have to realize there's so much, and that's big wormholes right there. And like I said, I'm not the leading authority on this, but I've definitely seen that being a big factor in it, and a big thing being keeping the vigor going too, taking something that you want, working it, introducing that trait into it, stabilizing that trait somewhat among the population, and then re-outcrossing it again to something else to kind of reintroduce that vigor. That's been a big help to me too. But what I did with that Sinai is I just took my female that I really liked, and I let 3 different males that kind of matched her, broadleaf dominant, short hitters. So I kind of did a bigger population of them, but we also kept a cut of that mother as well. And that's the mother that we're going to react with a couple of these different males to see what we can unlock or change in her in a hybrid, you know.
When I think of multiple males, I kind of think more for preservation purposes than I do kind of necessarily a breeding project. So, what are your thoughts on the importance of kind of breeding and keeping a proprietary male?
It all
Do
depends
you
on
think
what your
it's
goals are.
would you rather see your breeders have several studs they work with, or would you rather see yourself and other breeders? Is it that big of a deal to constantly change the male? Uh, go ahead.
And this is something that I tell my guys too over in the Discord, is everything has its place. No matter what type of breeding you're doing, everything has its place. That guy that's selling crap seeds for $10 a pack, and that guy that's selling them for $300 a pack, they have their place. Inbred lines, if somebody really wants something that's been, a true breeding plant, then you might want to start with an inbred line so you're not finding a shit ton of arrangement of genetics that you have to go through. It's really beneficial to work with something that's been worked like that, especially when you're trying to pair this trait with this trait. Well, if they're both true breeding for that, it's a lot easier to find out what the possibilities in the end product's going to be. Now, when it comes to diversifying that population, I think that's more important for people that are trying to, especially like with me, it's more of an interest of, I don't start anything out assuming I'm going to keep anything at all. It's because a lot of the times I don't know what to expect. It's like, I like things from this region. Okay. I'm really into ties. Am I going to like this Myanmar? I don't know, I might look a little bit about where it's from, but I've never grown it myself. And this is going to be, fun. We're just going to ride with it type of thing. But in that case, I want to see different phenotypes. So I don't want something that's an inbred line. I'm trying to find something that's original and new that nobody's ever worked with before. I've always been one to root for the underdog. So a lot of the new strains that a lot of people are growing, if I've heard that name like 10 times, I completely lose interest in growing it at all. I want to grow something that's different, I want to see something that I've never seen before. So more often than not, I'm looking for something that does, has been hit by a few studs has been collected feral or has been worked to the point where it's true breeding for a certain trait. So everything's kind of got its place, you know. Otto's got their place, fem seeds have their place. It all depends on what your goals are.
You can't hear me unless I unmute.
I didn't want to say anything.
If you do see it, please point it out, man. Please. So with that being said, how do you let's say you find a winner in that project, something you're very proud of. You've got a nice batch of seeds and it's something that you want others to have. How do you plan to go back? You know what I mean? Especially when you've got multiple fathers in there, you've you've kind of set forth a miracle moment. You know what I mean? It's tough to recreate that temperature, humidity, exactly what blew where. You know what I mean? How do you plan to recreate if you've come up with that winner with the multiple males? I mean, I think that's keeping a parental little stock in my opinion is very important to a serious breeder. You know, these days even more so, I'm hoping for breeders to kind of dip their feet in, and I think the knowledge is close to being there to where they don't have to trust Philos. You know what I mean? I think we're close to being able to keep our own freezer at home and then being able to fucking rework that or whatever at some point, clean it up, bring it back. But that's the way in my opinion, I kind of hope breeders go. You know, I've put this forth. Uh, yeah, maybe I don't need this mailer anymore or whatever. I want to move forth. I don't have room. I'm a tissue culture, mom and dad, so I can bring them back at some point and make another batch that's similar to what I've got if I'm not going to keep the parental stock. Well, I mean, what's the answer for your scenario?
Again, it really depends on what your style and what your goals are. I've kept plants, like I said, I don't keep them too long. I really like going through seeds and find something different. And if I had something great, I might have a chance to find that same phenotype I had that's just a little bit better. You never know. Um, but I think it's really important to go through genetics like that. When you do want to keep something, it's a lot of my mothers I'm running, you know, my mother's and my father's, I'm running on very, very low lighting. I typically use like T5s. I used the HLG B spec for a while. Um, we used the CMH for a while. But a big part of that, especially in soil, you already, if you're doing soil in a living pot, you can keep, you don't need as much nutrition. You just got to keep them right and when they're mothers, you know, when so you kind of keep them under that low lighting. I top them very often just to slow them down, keep them going, and keep them in a smaller pot size for as long as I can. When it becomes like outdoor season here in Washington, I'll typically take a cut. I'll grow it outside, kind of get it back into its natural environment, you know, and kind of reintroduce some of that vigor into it, retake a cut, sanitize it, clean it, you know, keep it away in quarantine for a little while and then bring it back into the grow and then start the process over again. That's big part of it. But like I said, it really depends on what your goals are, whether you should keep the original parentage or not. Are you looking for more traits of, you know, maybe you don't want this Cadillac OG or whatever, you wanted the father side of the Cadillac OG a little bit more. So you're going to F to it and you don't want to use that male again. You want to take it this different route and find that trait that expresses a little bit different, you know. But if it is something that you kind of want to stabilize or you know that male's putting really good traits into it, maybe you do want to hit it all the way to an F3 and then back cross it again to that father. You never know, you know. So it's that's a big part of it is like, what is your goals? Do you need to keep the plant around or not? Obviously, there's some plants that, you know, and they're typically mothers. that are clone onlys that, you know, just withstand time, and somebody's going to be taking care of that cut no matter what. And that's kind of when you know that shit's fire, right? Because it's been around for so damn long, and there's a reason it's been around for so damn long.
I just kind of think that once you change that parental stock, it should be noted in the genetics, especially if they're being sold. Not
Oh yeah.
necessarily in your case, you know, uh, that should be noted because obviously there's going to be new traits that come out in that second round. You know, I think at that point it should be noted. You know, this is V2. I'm working with a new male.
Yep.
Or something like that. I think it's just it comes in seed pricing too. We've talked about this a lot lately. Is the price of seeds. You know, everybody talks about it. You know, I think they should actually. I'm a big supporter for uh, where they're at in the breeding projects. Different pricing for the F1s, F2s, whatever. A worked line, you know, a nice F4 where everything's coming up clone like and it's the vision of the creator. I think that warrants, you know, a couple $100 a pack. You know, the work's done for you, you know, at that point. You know, that's as close to the cut as you're gonna get, in my opinion. You know what I mean? It's worthy for a few extra bucks. So I don't know. I guess
Yeah.
I'm a big component of knowing where things are, properly labeling of seeds these days.
Yeah. I'm a huge advocate for, you know, paying your dues and paying respect for the people that made those genetics for you. Do you need anybody's permission to work with genetics? No. You know, once you buy those genetics, they're yours. And you can do whatever the hell you want to them. Do I think it's respectful, and do I think it's the moral thing to do to say, hey, how do you feel about me doing this or something? Just reaching out, or at least if you plan to sell the seeds that you made with that cut. I don't remember who the company is. You might remember, but there was a seed company that was putting on their packages the mother and the father, and then they put like top dog genetics and something, or thank you to these people at the bottom of their packs to, you know, pay their respect to that. I found that really honorable, and I was like, that's definitely something that should be required. Another big thing
I
is
think there would be a lot less beefs in the breeder world if that happened. You know, a little more respectful nods.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And recently we talked to Duke. Duke sent us a bunch of genetics out. Um, Big shout out to Duke Diamond, by the way, for that. That was awesome. But one of the things that I love about his genetics is he puts a little card on them. Let me see if I can dig one out. Uh, but I'm sure you're familiar with Dominion, but he'll put his card or whatever, and then on the back, he actually has all this information about like the flowering time, the grow time. Like he knows everything about these plants in and out. He's worked with them for so long. He's got stress notes, pest resistance, and I was like, wow, that is amazing. You know, that's next level shit for somebody. You know, even some of these breeders that do the same thing, but they put it on their website. But it's kind of handy having a little card like that where you can go, you can look back to it, pin it on your wall, whatever you want to, and refer to it. You know, oh, this one's, you know, sensitive under high light, you know, whatever. And I think that should be an industry standard.
Oh, I do too. I really do too. Back in the good old days where people gave a shit about the breeding and the quality of breeding, you know, I'm very appreciated. I can see, you know, you'll have some ethics about your breeding projects as you move forward. You're passionate about the terpenes, you know, and what they do and what they're going to be doing together as you introduce them together. But I don't think a lot of people are going to do that in the future, man. It's the approaching
Oh no,
recreational market, man. I think we're
we
going to see
already do
more and
it.
more pollen chuckers. You know, it ain't going to be the Duke Diamonds that are labeling the packs like that. It's going to be the hype times hype, and it's kind of sad,
Already see it.
really. If it's it's going to be people like yourselves that keep the community alive. Basically, that's what it's kept it alive before till now.
Oh yeah,
Is people that
it'll
had a
always survive.
genuine.
It'll always survive. Yeah, we already see it heading that direction. We got the big corporations coming in. They're hopped on genetics already. Like you were saying with like Phylos earlier, you got people that are taking these cuts. They're making their collections. They're ready for the big turnover where they can brand these clones. Now you can't work with these genetics, just like we've seen in agriculture with tomatoes and things like that. Once they put their genetic patent on it, you can't work with that or you're going to get your ass sued. So it's really important right now to be preserving some of these genetics. I have way more respect for some of these guys that are like Ace Seeds or any of these old land race genetic preservationists that are taking the time to collect these genetics and repopulate them to share with other people. I think that's extremely important. The thing about why I say, well, it's not as fun or it's not as pretty or it's not as rewarding as seeing like a blanket of scrogged out buds is you're working with a lot of genetics that are all over the board, and they're used to being grown in this environment. Now they're all like, what's going on, with this artificial light. Or you don't know how to feed them. A lot of these have been acclimated to grow in really, really poor soil conditions. But I don't go after the land races because I'm looking for magic. I'm looking for something that can make potential magic. I'm trying to find something that's really, really great from that stock, hybridizing it with something else that's going to be better. Because, when we introduce those two genetics that are vastly different, you get that hybrid figure. And that's something that I'm kind of chasing after and trying to make something new out of. And then after I've made whatever hybrids I like, I'm going to kind of follow that down, and kind of, keep the traits that I want and then outcross for the ones that I want to introduce. But I have
Yeah, I've got a lot.
those guys.
Got a lot of respect from the breeders that start from scratch. You know what I mean? Pull each side from seed, do the hunting, and then move forth from there. I think some of these people that are doing breedings with a lot of these cuts uh, are doing it for just the reason for hype. You know what I mean? They got that hype. They don't give a shit. They just want it on the label. They're gonna smack it with anything as long as it's got that
Name
hype on the
sell.
label.
Name sell. All you got to do, and that's why we call it hype, right? Is all you got to do is hype it up. Like, you got these 10 good friends that really say, oh, this shit's awesome. All they got to do is gang up on these guys and say, oh, this shit's awesome. Then people are going to start playing telephone. And then boom, that shit's hyped up and it's got a price tag because everybody's asking for it. And it's just marketing.
I believe that if there's a line drawn, that you will probably find yourself on the medical side of the breeding there. But do you think that as the legal markets approach, breeding will be geared just towards high THC numbers, and the medical side just completely left behind? I believe the terpenes and are a bigger part of the picture. It isn't just the number that's being pushed. So do you think that people will be breeding strictly for hype, or people with names, people recognize, just will the heart in breeding be taken out by legal cannabis, I guess is the question.
So I'll answer that question like this, because I have friends in the rec market. I've got friends that grow good weed in the rec market and really treat it right. They're few and far between, but they're there. So I believe the rec market's got its side, but here's the thing of kind of where the future of cannabis is going with this shit is, I don't know how the laws are all over the world, but some states are doing it right, some states are not doing it right. In Washington, here in Washington, our rec market is horrible. When you go in there, right now, what's selling is hype. Why? Because the number one thing when you're buying that product is going to be the bag appeal on it. Because here in Washington, you can't go into a dispensary and open up a jar, smell it, and go, oh, yeah, I like the smell of that or anything. It's like, here's a package. Does this look good or no? Do you want it? So the only thing that's selling in Washington right now is bag appeal. And then what's the next thing that you're going to go after that? If you know, a lot of people are consumers, they're not growers. So what do you go after if you're going after it with that perspective? You've already gone off bag appeal, so what's left? Well, I don't understand what terpenes are because I'm not that much into it. I'm just a user, you know. Oh, but I know about THC and that shit gets you fucked up. So the next thing is that THC number, you know. And that's where it's important for people in the community like me and you and a lot of people that are probably going to be watching this. You have a responsibility to teach people about the benefits of this plant because that is a huge part of it, is that entourage effect. It's not the THC level that's going to fuck you up. I've had shit that's 12% that fucked me up better than that 32% hype shit that was freeze dried at the rec story. It tasted a lot better too. But that's not what it is. It's how these flavonoids, how these terpenes, how these styles, how the arrangement of them and how they express in different environments. All of these things, even, and I'll even go farther into it like that. I'll bring it all the way back to the beginning of the stream where I was talking about terpenes and sensory memory. If you go over to your grandma's house and you get used to the terpenes of her house, those different scents that are being put out, and it brought you happy memories as a kid, you might go somewhere different one day that's not your grandma's house at all, and you smell that and it reminds you of it and it tells your brain to be happy, you know. And I think it's more, there's more to it than just what's in the plant. It's how that plant makes you feel, what it brings back into your subconscious, and even further than that, the company that you're around with it, the mood that you're in while it's affecting your cannabinoid system. You know, there's so many things that are going on with it. The THC percentage does not matter at all. You know, we've seen a lot of bud that hits you better that has just a little bit of CBD in it or a little bit of THCV. You find these different cannabinoids that play into that, you know, that profile, and that shit'll treat you better than, you know, 32% THC with 2% terpenes and, you know, just crap. But like I said, everything's got its place, and that's where those ones have their place, is in a world where bag appeal and THC percentage persist.
I think that big money will bank on just a few strains and dictate. See, I can tell by the tone of your voice, the way you're speaking. We're speaking of medicine, not necessarily recreational cannabis. You know what I mean? I believe that smell, that terpene profile is very important. I've bitched about that moment where we lost that here in Michigan. Same thing. You, how many times have you sat there at a table 30 strains back in the good old days when you could just smell the jars and you could you didn't need to smell off there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You went, wow, that's it.
People that
You
are
know
doing
what
it
I
right.
mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's
that's
how
what
Washington used to
the
be.
net was never that number. Your nose told you which one was going to work best for you. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? That it's very strong. Aromatherapy, you know, all in itself is basically kind of what we're using the terpenes for anyway. We found that aromatherapy, essential oils, has a big place. So why isn't that a big part of what our cannabis should be? They're putting off the same terpenes as the essential oils. Why can't we be choosing them like you would in
Exactly.
aromatherapy? I need this terpene for this. I need lavender for this. You know what I mean? You know, uh, why not? It should be a huge factor in,
Yeah.
how cannabis is being chose and bred. You know what I mean? I think once we start eliminating them factors and go large scale to what research has shown them that this highest producing THC strains, and this name works best, and this is t-shirts of these cannabis strains. Now we're down to 14, or like you've seen it happen with alcohol. We're just now being able to, because it can be brewed at home, seeing a comeback of more flavors. But if they had their way, we'd be back down to fucking Budweiser, Pabst Blue Ribbon, Miller, and just the basic few. But it could be that with cannabis, they could try to dial us down to, and it won't be a medicine at that point. Talk about smelling jars, it'll be all lost when your medicine's cookie T-shirt. Here you go. This is what works best for you.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I was saying, like it's really important. And I find it everybody's responsibility to educate people on cannabis. You don't have to be a bastard. You don't have to talk about cannabis 24/7, but if you're in company, bring it up, talk about it. If somebody has a question or they're having an ailment, ask people how they are. That's really important in the day and age that we're in right now with um, the pandemic and all. There's a lot of mental health problems that are erupting from all of this, and I think it's important to reach out to your people and just take 10 minutes to say, hey, how are you doing? Even people that don't smoke cannabis, and see if there's some way that we can incorporate it into their life if they're willing, and educate people on cannabis, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to keep this alive. It's always going to persist. It's always going to persist. But I'd like to see it not just persist, but thrive. I would like to see it being grown in every fucking yard. I don't think it's anybody's goddamn business to tell you this is how many plants you can have. You're not going to tell me how many fucking tomatoes or potatoes I can have in my ground. It's a plant. At the end of the day, it's a plant. There's a lot of other shit that we can take out of there and smoke too that's going to fuck us up, that you haven't, you find out that we're starting to use it, and then you're like, okay, now it's illegal. Like, it's because
Not only how many, but how much it can produce. You know what I mean? They don't tell you how many fucking tomatoes you can grow. You know what I mean? Uh, it's some bullshit. There's limitations they're putting on cannabis.
And that was a big part of it, in like back when we first started growing, a lot of it was sea green with the indoor stuff, because we weren't taking cuts and stuff. We were strictly growing from seed. So it was like, okay, we'll do this one crop, we'll make a bunch of seeds, and that'll last us for a couple of years, and we'll just do like a bunch of 1 gallon pots. And okay, well, I could take one plant and veg it forever, throw it in a gigantic pot and fill out that space too. So why am I getting in trouble for this same space of 100 plants that I could do with one plant, and you wouldn't get mad about that? Doesn't make any sense. It's so hypocritical.
Yeah, I don't like to see, because we're limited by numbers. You can get good yields from a sea of green, but I don't like to see it because we're limited by numbers. For bigger plants, just like you're saying, pull them back, use them more wisely. Hopefully, I like the perpetual. Is the best way, and you never run out of cannabis. Basically, it's never overwhelming the work. You know what I mean? Always something to do. So many pluses to a good perpetual. And it keeps you in your numbers, safely in your numbers. Helps keep you safely.
Do you know Hoda Herb at all?
Yeah, he'll be on Saturday.
Oh, right on. He's shout out to Hoda. He was another guy when I first came on IG that was around. He helped me kind of learn how to get into. He was one of the guys that introduced me to KNF for the first time. but we were talking about it back then when he was doing rice holes and shit like that. And I was like, oh, what's this KNF stuff? But he was kind of one of the first people that helped me out. Um, and I really, really appreciate that about him. I don't remember what the fuck I was gonna say, but yeah, Hoda, you rock.
One thing I took about away from the biggest thing I took away from my last Hota interview was more or less the thought of meditation, cannabis and meditation.
Mhm.
But he seemed to be kind of a gentleman that was one, you know what I mean? So I asked him very, I said, do you meditate, Hoda? He looked at me all serious and he said, all the time. Every time I consume cannabis, I'm pretty much meditating. Meditating basically is clearing your mind, controlling your breathing. So basically, every time or most times I try to consume my cannabis, I like to step outside and just let my mind kind of fade into the nature and take in deep breaths, slow deep breaths, and let my mind fade into kind of a meditation state. So yeah, it's like yeah, every time
Every
I'm
time I'm in the
consuming
garden.
cannabis, I'm indeed fucking using meditating with cannabis. Another thing I took away from that statement was consumption of cannabis. A lot of times, myself included, we grow multiple cultivars because we say we just get sick of it. You know what I mean? They don't work as well. I'm cannabis isn't working for me as well. What I found from that instance from Hota, where I was fucking up in my own consumption, was it wasn't the cannabis that was letting me down. It was how I was consuming the cannabis.
Not diversifying.
Well, not necessarily diversifying. It was kind of the old mentality of, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
Oh, okay. Mhm.
If I'm in my environment, and that's a lot, how many times have you smoked or consumed and then went out and went, wow, I'm fucking high. You know what I mean? That's what I found out, took away from Hota is, I needed to step back and enjoy my cannabis. It wasn't the fact it wasn't working for me. I wasn't stepping away and enjoying the cannabis the way I should be. I even now, what we're doing right now. No, I'm fucking 4 joints in. You know what I mean? I can honestly say this cannabis isn't affecting me, is having as great an impact on me as it could. But I guarantee if I were to leave my environment, go outside, smoke the same joint, and come back in and get back to this conversation, I'd be like, whoa, man, I feel a little hot. You know what I mean? I've taken myself out of my environment, gave me a fresh start with it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, there's something to be said on how you're consuming your cannabis. You need to kind of step back at some point and enjoy it the way it needs to be enjoyed. If you're using it recreationally, that's how you're using it. Basically, it's the end of your day. You're wanting to unwind. You're stepping back. So as a daily user, that's how I think you should be using it. You should be stepping back for whatever you're currently doing, taking that five, having a laugh, and get a fresh start again at what
So yeah, absolutely.
Great dude, though. I'm looking forward to speaking with him again Saturday.
Yeah, he's a very good dude. I've never had a bad moment with that guy. He's been so helpful to me and my family, Um, he kind of introduced me to Jinx, and um, that's when I learned about Jinx and him having an autistic child. We have an autistic child as well. And then we ended up doing like a fundraiser for autism, for his benefit that he has, the autism awareness benefit, Northwest Families for Autism. And we raised some money for that. And just doing little things like this, you know, meeting new people, and it brings about a new experience for you. Um, it's those connections that we make that are really important in keeping this community built and healthy. And Hoda was kind of one of those first people that I connected a dot with, you know. And he was like, "Yeah, no, I can help you, man. That's all good." I'm always gonna have some love in my heart for that guy. He's been a huge influence. Professor P has been a
Super
huge,
good dude, man. There's so many great people in this community.
for sure. Everybody can
I'm
teach
sorry.
you something. No, you're good, man. You're good. Everybody can teach you something. You know, there's old people that could learn something from guys that have never grown before. Um, well, that's pretty extreme. You know what I'm saying? I'll use this as an example. I had one good friend. There wasn't a lot of people in my immediate area that are growing, and a lot of people that are growing don't have any interest in, you know, learning it beyond throw it outside and water it. They're not going to be indoor growing and stuff. That's just not a huge thing in my area. You go over to the west side of Washington, over towards Seattle, and you got a ton of home growers. There's a huge community over there. So I was having a lot of my seeds tested out of house by people that were already growing in indoor environments, you know. And I'd send out testers to them, you know, give me some feedback. Let me know what you like about it. And I saw them grown under scrog. I saw them grown, you know, fucking multi-top, natural, you name it. I saw it. And one of the things that I learned about sending seeds out to testers was, you know what I appreciate? Yeah, I appreciate seeing my plants growing in a scrog style. I appreciate seeing them in SOG. I appreciate seeing them in multi-topped HPS grows, you know. But what really impresses me is when I see something I haven't seen before. That's the biggest thing. Have I seen this plant grown this way or not? And I had one guy that, you know, is like his first time growing cannabis, and I was like, I got some seeds you can grow, you know. And he's like, "Oh yeah, for sure." He goes, "You made this one?" I go, "Yeah." And I was like, and I told him that. I said, "You know, I've had a lot of people testing these, but it kind of gets boring for me seeing my plants grown in the same way over and over again. You know, I'm more apt to go, oh, what was that? You know, if you surprise me with something I haven't seen before." And this motherfucker, do you remember those old tomato topsy turvies?
Fuck yeah, I do. I still got a 10-pack in the garage right now. You don't know how many times I've looked at them things and go, I wonder if I could grow some weed in it. I bet it'd be fucking good.
That's what he fucking did. And he threw my seeds in it. He germinated them. He planted them in there. He packed the soil, hung it up, and I saw my plant grow out of fucking topsy turvy.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm glad somebody did it.
Dude, and it was a shitty plant. I'm not gonna lie, it sucks. It sucks. But I found it so damn cool just because it was something I haven't seen before, you know? It was like, wow, this is how it reacts like that. Like, in what fucking world would I see the strain growing in a fucking topsy turvy, you know?
So I just gotta ask, just because idea's sake, because I have honestly thought about it a few times, but I thought to myself, man, because I've grown cucumbers and them tomatoes and them things, and some, you know, were water once a day, tomatoes were water twice a day, but I figured cannabis, I'd be like, man, twice a day, easy in the topsy turvy, you know what I mean? So was it a thing where it could have maybe not got watered as much as it needed?
Oh
Fucking,
yeah,
if you
no,
would put
no.
that thing on a
Like
drip,
he was yeah. He was a first year grower. And he wasn't, like I said, he wasn't super into it. Like, he wasn't in the garden every day. He wasn't that type of grower. So so he just didn't have the experience or anything. I think you could do better, absolutely. But, you know, and we see this in nature with everything else, as the roots grow down, gravity is kind of pulling that root system down. Those roots are reaching out for water, and then the plant's going to kind of typically match that on top. Bigger roots, bigger fruits. But when you grow it in the topsy turvy, your roots are already unnatural. They're going this way, when gravity's kind of working against them. And then the drying of that long tube, you get drying from both ends. And then if you've got like the mesh ones, it's like a smart pot. You get drying all around it, kind of evenly and then it kind of goes towards the center, instead of like a nursery pot where it's top and bottom. You kind of got this workaround from all edges. So yeah, I think you would need something like you were saying, like a drip system where it's staying a little bit wetter there. Especially here.
It's fun to experiment with cannabis. It really is. It's a resilient plant. I
Yeah,
think some
I'm
of these
weird. I'm
techniques.
artistic, so I like that type of stuff. Have you ever seen the cannabis bonsais? Like the people that have grown
Yes.
them? So cool.
I think I was talking about that. I think it was like last year, right around 420, making heart shaped fucking cannabis plants and stuff like that. Why not? There's so
See, there's even a guy on Instagram, I think his handle's Stunned Art. Have you ever do you know him at all?
no,
He
I
grows
haven't.
he grows plants constantly. He's got a big old tray, and then he's got like those little like shot glass size solo cups, and he'll flower in those damn things. And he'll have like tons of these cells of like little 5 to 8 milliliter solo cups, and he'll have just a bunch of string bean plants on it. And he says himself, yeah, I don't really yield shit on these, but that's not what it's about. It's the experience. It's having fun with it, enjoying what I do. And yeah, he's known for flowering in solo cups, and like a solo cup is a big pot for him. So it's cool seeing some of the shit that he can create. And he even does like shapes like a candelabra and stuff like that. Yeah, I could shout out people on Instagram all day. There's so many great growers over there.
There it is, man. It's where I've obviously met quite a few people, man, through the Instagram. Uh, there's a lot of great growers out there anymore. It's nice to see. I'm not a hater in any way. I love seeing the plant also grown in any kind of way. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying. I find so much enjoyment from seeing people do things different. I think it's interesting, even if it's not something that I would do. I'm typically apt to learn something about it or read more about it if it's something that I've never heard of before, or you're just doing something in a different way that I haven't seen before. That's the stuff that really impresses me. And that's one of the things that I'd really love to see for anybody that's listening. If you get some seeds from me, grow that shit as like a bonsai. I want to see that.
Would the best way for it to start off on a bonsai like that be to almost to monster crop that girl? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That way,
that's a
when she
good
came
idea.
all
See,
back, all nice and bushy, you could start, really manipulating because you
oh,
had so many branches to work with. You could really get, manipulated at that point in a good direction.
yeah. And Miyagi that shit and send me a picture. I'll be happy as a clown. All right, buddy. I think my time's about getting up here.
Well, a couple of things before you go, brother.
For sure.
I don't know if you caught my episode with Duke Diamond a couple weeks ago, but it was a fun. I think we all win. We went for a long time. Go back and check that out.
Nice.
See
Oh yeah, I will do.
if we missed some things in our two interviews there or something, you can ask him about on your next episode with him because he's a fucking fun dude. Uh,
He's about
It's
to
funny.
release a Discord. Sorry, I cut you off there.
I was just gonna say it's kind of funny. We're vibing with some of the same folks because Hota will be on Saturday. Jinx will be on not this Sunday, but the following Sunday. So check out those episodes as well. But I'm straying from my point in wasting your time. So what I
No,
want to tell you before you go is thank you very much for hanging out. There's 3 aspects of the show in building on the channel. So basically, there's the spotlight that we do, of course, Weed Nerd World, and the organic takeover with Smiley, where he gets real in depth about what's going on with soil technique, and all that good stuff. But what I'm inviting you to now is Weed Nerd World. Since you've done the spotlight episode, the Zoom link that I had sent you is the same that I use for the Weed Nerd World. Basically, how the Weed Nerd World works is it is only open to past guests. You can come and go as you please. If you're following the channel, anytime it pops up and there is a Weed Nerd World in the title, you're more than welcome to come hang out, talk cannabis, promote a future episode, or whatever you're working on. Whatever, come hang out. Sometimes we're talking cannabis, sometimes we might be talking fungus, psychedelics, conspiracy, all the above. Stoners have a bouncy mind, so it is what it is. So basically, how again, it's 2 a.m. right now, close to there for my time. How Weed Nerd World works, or this channel works, is the guest takes it as far as we can go towards that 420 mark, and then when the show ends, I pick up and go with Weed Nerd World. So they're quite frequent. Monday nights are guaranteed Weed Nerd World. Wednesday nights it's a little easy earlier. They do theirs at 11:30. Weed Nerd World West Coast takeover on Wednesdays. So come hang out, man. Obviously, you've got a lot of knowledge to share. You like talking with other people, meeting connections. As you folks know very much, networking is key in cannabis and podcasting. So the more folks you meet, the better. And there is so many breeders, since that is a lot of what you do. They've been on this channel, man, and they come and go quite frequently. So come hang out, it'd be nice.
yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely. I've been interviewed by a few people, and you're definitely one of the better conversations that I've had, man. I really vibe with you, and I appreciate your time.
I appreciate yours, brother. The last thing I'd like to get from you before you go is a sound bite. I kind of use these sound bites for like a commercial for your episode at some point.
Never done a sound
So
bite.
So basically what I'm looking for, the meat of it, you can do whatever you want before, after, I don't give a shit as long as it's kind of got this in the body. My version, hey, this is Eagle and I'm on fucking Talking Shit with Eagle, episode 573. Again, you can do whatever you want before, after, as long as it's got somewhat that somewhere in there. I'm ready for you now, brother.
Wait, so I'm just what am I doing? I'm a few joints in, I'm not gonna lie. I had to tell
Basically,
down.
I'm asking you for your sound bite, basically telling them what show you're on, what episode.
Okay, what episode is it?
So 573.
573. Okay.
Right, bro.
Oh, we're over again. This is Caylx, and I'm on Talking Shit with Eagle. Fucking Talking Shit with Eagle. Episode number 573. I had a great time talking to him. I hope you guys enjoy this episode.
Fuck yeah, they did, man. We've had close to 100 watching us at one point. There's still fucking 87 watching right now live. They have had a great time, enjoyed this conversation.
87
So
rad
again, man,
motherfuckers.
I hope that you do come back and hang out, man. They've enjoyed your company, man. People like to stand by behind people they've gotten to know. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so we've gotten to know a great guy tonight. Please come back. One other thing I want you to tell them about the podcast. When can they catch it? When can they look for it? Where is it available, my friend?
So I only started the podcast about 7 months ago. And it was right now I'm working a full-time job. I've got 4 kids that me and my wife raised. And I do this on top of it. So it's been one of these things where like, I've worked my whole life, so I don't really care too much. Um, but I'm trying to balance this act where eventually I can podcast full time. So I have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/doc_Calyx. You can join membership, support the show with $10 a month. I try to make it as affordable as possible. They get Q&As with the podcast guests. They get behind the scenes content. They get full access to our Discord server that's got 163 channels all about growing cannabis, medical use of cannabis, growing in different styles, synthetic, organic. We've got all kinds of specialists. It's a pretty damn good time. Really good vibes, people that just want to see each other succeed, like I said before. And I've got to shout out all the people helping me over there. I've got a great group of guys. But they can find the podcast on YouTube, Deezer, Stitcher, all major platforms. We're dropping them about one podcast a month. Sometimes I'm shooting for 2. We're kind of switching over to like a bi-weekly release. But we do that, and then we play game day giveaways where they can win seeds and stuff like that. It's a really good time. So yeah, they can check it out all over. It's pretty much everywhere. YouTube is the popular one. YouTube and Spotify are super popular. And I would stress, because I am super like underdog here. And I'm not good at marketing myself at all, but I'm getting better. I'm learning. Just like if you like it, take the time to, like leave a thumbs up, subscribe to it. Tell me what you thought about the show, because that's what really helps us get our name out there and get seen. Podcasts don't get very good views. It's really hard to make a goddamn good podcast.
And yours is. I've listened to a few of them, and that's why I'm trying to, plug you out, brother, to be honest with you, because it is a nice, genuine, good-hearted conversation, informational and base. It isn't a lot of bullshit. It's a lot of good information being put forward and asked. So, you know, I'm all about support. Like I told you that off air, man. I'm all about supporting other shows and helping them get started. So, if I can help you at any point, look down the channel. I've talked to about every breeder that we can uncover so far, and I'm willing to talk to all the rest of them. If I can now help you at any point, get your word out, promote your show.
I appreciate
don't
that.
don't be afraid to hit me up, brother. And don't be afraid to come back and hang out, man. It don't have to be all publicity, man. Just be a part of the community, man.
That's why I like
One thing I liked about what you said about
both.
your Discord is one thing that happens right here in this community, and the people that hang out here in the weed nerd world and shit, is the hellos. How you doing? Each one of these people, if you go by and watch these shows and watch tonight's show, because we didn't watch the chat, everybody greets everybody. Hello, how you doing? It's a big part of, keeping the heart of the community. So I appreciated that, man. I was cheesy when you said that. I'm like, man, I'm not gonna lie to you, brother. I hate Discord. And it ain't about what you do or whatever. It just kids super clicky. That's the only thing I don't like about Discord. But the way you talked about your in particular community, and Kazoo Kush was giving you props in chat there, saying that he runs a legit
He's over there.
he said you run a legit Discord over there. So between the two, makes me want to at least check it out, man. So I invite everybody else to go over and check out this Discord as well. Because you didn't plug that as well. You gotta go over there and check them out over there as well. To you guys over there in Discord. So
I'm getting good at this just because I've had to remember it so much. It's discord.gg/Calyx_crew_podcast. No, fuck no, it's just Calyx Crew Podcast without any underscores. One word, Calyx Crew Podcast. Or the easy route, which I like better, you go to my IG profile. There's a link in my bio that you can click that will guide you to the podcast. It'll guide you to our websites, all of our connections. Everything is in one fucking link right there. And it's funny that you were saying that you hated Discord, because a big reason that I wanted to start that Discord is because I hated IG. You know, I was so for years over there. We would do live shows and we'd have hundreds of people on there, and we'd get, you know, when you got that many people going, you've got conversation rolling in the comments. It's really interactive. It's really fun. And then all of a sudden you get like 3 photos banned or whatever. You go live and there's like 3 people in there because nobody's even seeing your shit. And then they're also deleting your content on top of that. Or I would like go into a live show and get kicked off within 30 minutes for something stupid. And I just got tired of it. So it's like, okay, I'm ready for something else. And then we discovered the Discord, and I really took my time putting it together to kind of include everything in there. For, you know, there's something for everybody. We've got games. I was saying Duke too. I really want to plug Duke because he's been a good friend to me and I appreciate his company. But one of the things I was doing is he saw my Discord and even he said, wow, this is fucking, you know, this is kind of mind blowing, you know, what you've created here. So I took the time out of my day because, you know, building that community. Duke really helped me out, took his time to come on the podcast, gave us good information, and then we started talking like every day after that, and we just vibed together. And I was like, hey man, I can help you out in this way. So went over there and started building a Discord for him too. So he's going to have one here pretty soon too. And it's kind of, you know, based off the style that I did mine with. So it should be good. So I'll plug both the Discords right there, but that will be coming soon. It's not out yet.
well, like I said, hopefully that you guys go there and check out the show and the Discord, and hopefully one last plea to get you to come hang out on the Weed Nerd World as well. Come spread out a little bit of knowledge and personality.
For sure.
At some point, I'd like to ask you at some point about that guitar and the music you possibly play, because music and cannabis go hand in hand.
Fuck yeah, I've been a musician my whole life.
Right now, we're trying to. You said Washington. We're actually trying to put together like a music and cannabis type event here in Michigan, like where we call, like, you got your instrument and put up multiple stages and everybody just a camping event kind of jam and fucking hang out, burn camp.
That'd be dope, dude.
So
I've been trying
out for
like
that.
Yeah, dude. When I was a teenager, like I've got a pretty large collection for that. I started playing. I was playing saxophone when I was a little kid. I always thought saxophone was so fucking sexy. Like, you know, anybody that could play saxophone could get chicks. So that was my thing. So I played saxophone for like a ton of years. I learned piano for a little while. I always thought piano was a beautiful instrument. And my mom played piano, so I learned a little bit on there. And then I really got into drums. I thought Dave Grohl was a fucking badass. So I really like drums, but I'm not like that. I don't know. It's a lot. Drumming's a lot. And it's a lot of exercise too. So I was like, yeah. And my brother got a guitar one day and I was so jealous because, you know, he might have been playing a few crappy notes from some Led Zeppelin song and, you know, he was new at it too, but I was so jealous because it was a fucking rock and roll guitar. And I got a copy of what was it? No, it wasn't Guitar Center. It was Musician's Friend magazine, when those first started coming out. And I was really into Pantera back then. and I saw that they had a Dimebag Darrell MLX, and so I was like, and it was a base model. It was a Starburst one. He wasn't dead yet, so they weren't marked up in price or nothing. And I was like, it was only like $350, and I was like, I'm just gonna work my ass off, and I'm gonna fucking buy a Dimebag guitar, and just make my brother jealous as shit. Like we were typical brothers, you know. And but then after I got it, you know, I had to work so hard to get it. I actually took the time to learn it, and I just kind of taught myself how to play guitar. I was probably 12 when I started playing, 14 when I got my first guitar.
Man,
That one's not the
that's
MLX,
awesome.
though. That's the V.
I believe Rasufa in chat is asking, is that Flying by Dean? Is that a Flying V by Dean?
It is a V. The Dean V. I don't know where the MLX is. It's probably, oh, it's across the room over there. Yeah,
See,
I've got,
that's another
got a
cool
lot.
thing about getting a.
Got a Randall amp too. I'm a huge Dimebag fan.
That's the other nice thing about doing these episodes where you dive a little bit deeper into the cannabis person that you see, man, is because they have sub interest, man. I guarantee, because I know for a fact a lot of people that hang out in the community play either bass, guitar. You just sub bonded.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You just sub bonded in the community. You just probably fucking got a bunch of people in Discord and shit. Hell yeah. That's what
So
I
you
love
play
about
too
these,
then?
man. No, I don't, man. I mess around a little bit with guitar, and that's as far as I get. But man, my daughter is like you. She picked it up at 12 years old and has been self-taught and has moved her way through the instruments. And you know, I have none but respect for people that play, man. It's a beautiful thing. It takes your mind to a new creative place that most people can't go. And see, I'm kind of big on manifestation. So it's one of those things, man. If you can't see it in your mind and put it together in your mind, it doesn't have a chance. And the more artistic ability you have, the better chance you have of completing goals and stuff like that. So I appreciate people that have a natural artistic ability. I believe it gives them a little bit of a step up in life and completing goals. I think one
Have an
last thing
open
on
mind in
that
all things.
aspect, I think that's where people go wrong, bro. To be honest with you, is they grow up and they lose that creative side, that imaginary imagination side of life. They're too busy being told what to do. You know, they don't take those Hota moments where they step outside and just let their mind go and fuck it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let nature be nature. Let your mind go to new places without them being coached.
Yeah. Just the action of breathing alone is gonna do wonders for you. I know. And everybody's human, you know, we all get upset, we all fucking stress out. That's how we're built. That's what's gonna happen, you know. Sometimes things get overwhelming, you get stressed out, and but just taking that second, that action to, you know, calm down, de-stress. I call it deflating. When we roll up and light up a joint, we're gonna deflate for a second. We're just gonna not think about it. We're gonna take time and just enjoy where we're at. Enjoy, you know, what we see before us, you know, the views that we see outside of our house. Maybe go out one day into the forest and just fucking appreciate nature, you know, just not think about anything for a second. Just take it slow. It's okay to take those breaks every once in a while, and it's really resetting. I noticed that you were talking about with your Weed World group, or the Weed Nerd group, uh, was that you were saying you incorporated fungus in there as well. And I'm a huge supporter of that as well. You know, I think it's something that should be used as a targeted medicine for sure. But it's something that can be extremely healing for people.
I totally agree. So it sounds like there's many reasons you could come hang out to the show. Again, I think we've found a lot of good reasons for you to come back and check out the Weed Nerd World.
Oh, for sure, man. For sure. I appreciate you
But
having me on, and I appreciate your time, brother. Like, it's cool that I've kind of followed you for all these years and, seen what you've been doing. And I finally got, you're doing this now all of a sudden, and you're on 500 something episodes. Holy crap, man. I remember when I first heard about fucking talking shit with Eagle, you know? And I think it's really cool that you've done all this, and you're doing so much for the community now. And I finally got a chance to meet you and we just vibe like this. And, obviously there's a reason we cross paths, and I appreciate that reason.
I thank you, man. I thank you for following along all these years, man. It's been an awesome journey, man. Cannabis, I can't say enough about cannabis and people like yourself that are promoting what we do, man. So, and I got much respect for, again, what you're doing. Otherwise, I wouldn't have asked. So,
Thanks,
and
man.
again, I offer that serious olive branch, man. If I can help you in any kind of way, man, I'm more than willing. So,
Much respect.
with that being said, I know you said you were kind of crunching on time tonight. I don't want to overstay my welcome, so you'd be more apt to come back. But
Yeah.
looking forward.
No, I do got to get going, but there was no rush, man. We're vibing and it was a great time. By far one of the best interviews I've had. So thank you for that.
Well, for the rest of you guys, if you're not going to follow over into the Weed Nerd world, which I'm sure most of you will, uh, thank you for your time.
Shit. Am I too hard? Sorry. You were talking about doing that tonight.
Yeah, I do it every night.
Oh, fuck. Well, yeah, no, I can't tonight, man.
No, no. Well, you don't have to. But that's the beauty of the Weed Nerd world. It's come and go as you please, man. It don't have to be tonight. It's whenever the fuck you do. You don't, no invitation. You come and go as you please. That's the one thing about the Weed Nerd world. It's an ever evolving panel. You never know who's coming and going. It's.
So where do you put up the links for this?
They're all on the channel. They're all on the channel. Basically, what's funny is we talk about the 573. The Weed Nerd worlds mostly are 0.5s. So they're not even in that count. There's probably 300-400 Weed Nerd World episodes that are buried in between those numbers in 0.5s.
Oh, man. Cool. Seems like every single episode I've watched of yours has been somebody else, so I didn't connect that up. No, Smiley's Garden. Is that all? Smiley's Garden, you've done quite a few with him.
Yeah, he does the organic takeover. He does a one-on-one like this, but straight up organic, serious grow. But yeah, every night if we don't go the full distance till 4:20, that's my allotted time slot. That's what I put forth every night for this. 11:30 to 4:20. And so when this ends, yeah, guaranteed there's going to be a Weed Nerd world. Shit, with the last couple nights, they went till 8 o'clock in the morning the other night. Last night we went till 6. Man, sometimes, man, they go. I've done probably in the last 2 years. I'm approaching March 25th. It will be the start of year 3 of this project. I've done
that's a lot of
five 24-hour episodes. This 420, I'm doing another 24-hour episode. So that'll be the 3rd annual 420 24-hour episode this year.
Yeah. Damn, dude. It's been 3 years already. Shit. Time's going by faster.
Yeah, man. It's been awesome getting to meet folks like yourself, man. I was thinking, as we were talking, because you do most, you spotlight kind of on the breeder side of things.
Okay, let's stop this. Let's stop this. Let's put this in the head right now, because people give me this all the time. When I started this, my intention was never to be a breeder spotlight at all. It was like I already have all these connections. I know so many fucking interesting people in the cannabis community that don't get their voices heard, like you're kind of doing for me right now, and fucking appreciate it again, you know. But there's so many people, like I get new growers in, they're like, oh, I love growing marijuana seeds. I bought Crop King. I bought, you know, and I'm like, oh. Makes me twinge a little bit. I'm happy you're growing. It's awesome, but we can do better, you know? And there's a lot of people that are taking the time to breed really good genetics. And like you were saying earlier, there's a huge influx of people that don't give a flying fuck for anything but your money, you know? And I think it's the responsible thing for, you know, growers that know better to kind of put your arm around a new grower and help them out. You're not helping them out by dissing their grow and picking it apart and saying you're stupid for this or you fucked up for this. No, you know, if you have the time to take out to say that to somebody, then you have the time to tell them, you know, hey, let me know what's going on with your environment. Let me know a little bit more about your grow style. Let's figure this out. That's how I feel about it, you know. So I think it's a good thing what you're doing here, just like me. But with the breeding thing, it was like I really want to spotlight some of these guys that don't get a voice as much, or even just friends of mine that I vibe with. You know, I've known P for years now, and that's one of the greatest fucking. I can't say enough about that guy. One of the greatest human beings I've ever met in my life. And he's been nothing but helpful, you know. And you know, just exposing people to him, and it just happened to be that a lot of my friends that were available that I knew were just naturally breeders, because a lot of the questions I was asking at the time, or you know, was from breeders. So then I tried to mix it up. I did like the cooking episode, by the way. We were talking about like not eating sugars, eating healthier, really caring about your gut biome. I did an episode with Chef Sebastian Carosi. I don't know if he caught that one, but he really talked about like you don't need sugar. He put an emphasis on that. You do not need to infuse shit with sugar. There's so many different ways that you can use this plant. One of the coolest things I thought was, or heard from him, was that he was in like pickling. He was taking lowers off his plants if he had any smaller nuggets, and he was pickling them. Obviously, you're infusing vinegar when you pickle something, right? Like, and he's like the texture of them, and I still haven't done it yet, but I really want to pickle. I don't know about you, but I love pickled asparagus. I love sauerkraut. Like that's my shit. I'm into ferments. I'm a KNF guy, you know, it just comes natural. But that's something that I really wanted to try, was like pickled cannabis buds. Not only is the liquid already infused, because that vinegar broke down, you know, all the cannabinoids, and infused them in the vinegar, but then you're absorbing that as well. You don't really have to do anything. It's pretty incredible. There's no sugar involved. You can enjoy it.
Never really thought about that, but I do love pickles, and there is a lady that a past guest, Crispy Treat Kitchens, who we went down to Clio this last event they had. She had some pickles. It wasn't necessarily pickle buds, right? There was pieces of bud in there, but it was more just pickles. And I say, what? I'm talking pickles hit strong and they hit fast. I was amazed how fucking fast they actually hit.
These pickles. Yeah. Has to. All right, buddy. I better get going.
Right on. Yeah. Almost vibing too good. We could do this all night. You guys, so thank you for your time, brother.
We'll do a longer episode if you're down for it.
I am. You have a good night, brother, and I thank you for your time. And
thank you for yours, man.
Rest of you guys know the deal. Random acts of kindness do save lives. Do something nice for somebody. We are out of